Delivering a joint statement, Stoltenberg also outlined further NATO measures to support Ukraine with training and logistics.
NATO will support Ukraine by planning and coordinating donations and will manage the transfer and repair of equipment. We will also provide support to the long-term development of Ukraine's armed forces. This will not make NATO party to the conflict, but it will help Ukraine to uphold its right to self-defense.
Recapping the top story, evacuation orders have been issued in the Western Cape. This after the South African Weather Service forecast further severe weather conditions in the province. For SFM News, I am Anne Musa.
A very good morning to you. In your SFM Sports headlines, some Olympic news. South Africa's Wade van Niekerk withdrawing from the 400 event at the Paris Olympics. And soccer action as England reached the UEFA Euro 2024 final with Ollie Watkins' last-minute goal sealing victory. We'll bring you all this and more just before 6:30.
SAFM. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. That storm has arrived overnight into the Cape Metropole and the inland areas, bringing with it some property and structural damage and a lot of fallen trees as well. So conditions pretty treacherous out and about. Trees down on the N7 at Bosmansdam off-ramp, the M5 north at Parkwood. There's a tree down on the R300 north going up towards the Hindle Road through the Delft area. The big tree falling down onto Kai Road between Steenberg Road and the M3. I'm sure that list will grow this morning. There may be some still from overnight down on the Glencairn Expressway area as well. The South Peninsula getting some quite heavy weather. Also some very heavy rain falling at the moment between Botrafia and Sir Lowry's Pass. There's also mist and visibility problems out that way. A stationary truck as well in the mix inbound on Sir Lowry's Pass. So very dangerous and treacherous conditions with the schools being closed in the affected regions, and really the advice to only travel if absolutely necessary today. If you do have to travel, go and travel carefully, please. One other scene we're watching is the N3 north around Ladysmith and KZN. Two trucks have collided, one lane open as you move towards the Bergville exit. And Joburg's N3 south opened up last night about 2 a.m. after a full closure yesterday afternoon. The road is open going south through Galilees to Bedfordview this morning. I'm Rob Byrne. SAFM Sunrise starts now.
SAFM Sunrise. A vivid start to your day.
7 minutes after 6. Good morning. Welcome to SAFM Sunrise. I'm Stephen Grootes. Good to have you along with us this morning. And it's actually been a very, very busy 24 hours by my book. Quite a lot going on still with the rain. I think in the Western Cape, that's still a major problem this morning. And still just concerned about the impact. Many schools are now closed. In fact, from what I can see, a very large number of schools are closed in the Western Cape. And today is sort of the day we're expecting the very heavy rain in the Western Cape. Three dams causing problems in the Paarl area. A village, people being asked there to evacuate. So just, if you're in there, if you're around there, listen to Rob, take it easy. Make sure that you and everyone around you are actually safe in what we expect now to be a day of very, very heavy rain in the Western Cape. The big story that came out of yesterday, of course, was the finding of the inquest into the deaths of the 144 people who lost their lives after being removed. They were mentally ill. They were removed by the Gauteng provincial government from the Life Esidimeni facility and, as we know, forced, I think often not really knowing what was happening to them, into these unlicensed NGOs. I still, to my mind, have never been able to understand what was really driving this. It's such a strange thing to do. But the findings were that the former Gauteng Health MEC, Qadani Mahlangu, and the former head of the Mental Health Directorate, Dr. Makgabo Manamela, I should say, can be held criminally liable for what happened. And some of the aspects of the finding from the judge were just so damning in a way that Manamela could have saved lives just by visiting the NGOs. I mean, it seems in a way, she said, the judge said that Manamela and Mahlangu created a situation in which these deaths were inevitable. And there are a lot of questions now around how the NPA will have to make a decision to sort of, prosecute or not. And presumably that can happen quite quickly. We'll speak to some legal people as we go through the morning because I can't see a reason why it would take a long time. I know we've we push and prod the NPA all the time. They'll have to make their own sort of decision. The charge, as I understand it, would be culpable homicide. And as I say, it's never been clear to me why this happened. And I'll never forget, actually, after all of this emerged, 2016, 2017, and in 2018, Xolani Mahlangu was re-elected to the Provincial Executive Committee of the ANC in Gauteng. From what I understand, no longer there, but still just, the most sort of crazy story. I was a little... it was just me, but I was a little disappointed in how Judge Manwa Tefo handed this down yesterday. I felt that for the victims, for the families, there needed to be a bit more sense of occasion. I'm not sure why it was handed down virtually. But I just got a sense that it needed something a little bit more. If it had been me, let me just put it like this. If it had been me connected with the case, I would have thought a bit more sense of occasion, at least do it in a courtroom. Maybe there's a legal reason or something that we don't know. I just felt that it almost, to me, actually showed a lack of respect to the people who died. Let me put it like that. I just felt disappointed. I thought the judge maybe should have done this in a physical setting. I thought, and just the manner as well, I'm afraid. It does matter. Presentation matters. Trust me, I know. And I just felt that maybe there was a lack of respect. That was how I came away from it. I don't know what you felt. It's a small part of a much bigger story. And the story really is the findings. The former chair of VBS Bank, Chifuyo Matodzian, I remember when Mdu and I came to first start talking to you in 2018, how big a story this was. He's now been jailed for 15 years after the collapse of VBS Bank. In total, after everything, he basically pled guilty. But after everything that's sort of been, totaled up, the sentences together come to 495 years. And they're going to run concurrently. And 1.8 billion rand, of course, was looted from VBS. And it looks like, and there's a lot of speculation about whether he's actually going to testify against some of the people involved. Remember the Terry Matau report? The Great Bank Heist was what he called it. He was the advocate who looked at this for the Reserve Bank. And he implicated Sizo, who's a senior politician in Limpopo for the ANC. In fact, if I remember correctly, do remind me, Sizo heard a conversation with Terry Matau on this radio show and then challenged the findings in court based on that conversation. It's quite a strange moment, quite an important moment in a way. In Parliament yesterday, big developments there. Songezo Zibi, he's the leader of Rise Mzansi, is now the new chair of the Standing Committee on Public Accounts. By parliamentary convention, normally this goes to an opposition party, that position. And technically, Rise Mzansi is part of the coalition government, but it has no other position. So it doesn't have a position in cabinet or anything like that. We'll speak to Songezo Zibi and ask him about that. Ian Cameron, and you may remember, in a way made famous because he was told to shut up by Beki Cele. And I know some people don't like me to use that phrase, but that was the direct quote, and I think we played it at the time. He's now chair of the police committees with the DA. William Kiese is chair of the COGTA Committee, the Cooperative Governance Committee. The Freedom Front Plus's Voter Vessels will chair the Auditor General Committee. Dina Pule will chair the Agricultural Committee. It was very, very interesting to watch it all play out. As Cyril Kaba from the ANC is the new mayor of eThekwini, a long list of problems to deal with there. Many people sort of talk about him as a sort of quiet-spoken kind of sort of safe pair of hands. He takes over from Nkosi Kawunda, who's gone to the National Council of Provinces. And Kaba saying yesterday he wants to know what the problems are with water and he wants them to be fixed because that's been a big, big issue in that part of the world, in eThekwini. Major issues there. And then in Joburg, Dada Morero, he's from the ANC. He's the finance member of the mayoral committee. He says the 200 rand charge that's being put on prepaid users of electricity by City Power, he thinks that should be reviewed. That seems to contradict what Kabelo Gwamanda, who's from El Jamar, the mayor, had said earlier, that it will stay. That was certainly how I interpret it. So there's a lot going on with all of this. All right, good to hear from you this morning. Your views on all of this, please. 086 000 2032, SMS 41391. You tweet us here from Radio and at Stephen Grootes. Send your WhatsApp voice notes to 0614 104 107. Good morning, you with SFM. It's nice to have you along. It's 14 after 6.
In South Africa, 1 in 5 children under the age of 13 is overweight or obese. Sign a petition to demand strong warning labels on unhealthy packaged food. And don't forget to catch the next episode of Chew on This at healer.org on Thursday, 27 June from 3 p.m. Young people tell us how big food companies are feeding them lies.
If you love premium documentaries, then we know you love Thursday nights on S3. Broadcaster Alice Levine asked if there's anything such as normal when it comes to sex and sexuality in the 2020s. She meets sexual adventurers up and down Britain, those pushing the boundaries of sex, intimacy and relationships. Tune into Sex Actually, Thursdays at 9 p.m. Channel your inner curiosity with BBC Primetime, only on S3. Open up.
The Daily News Diary on SAFM.
And Musa, good morning.
Good morning, Stephen.
A little warmer in Joburg. I'm unfortunately still very wet in the Western Cape.
Oh, yes. You know, weather conditions in the Western Cape quite adverse, and the authorities there now having issued evacuation orders in Citrusdal. That's following the level 8 weather warning for disruptive rainfall across the province. About over 15,000 people, and mostly in informal settlements, have been affected by the weather conditions there. And also in the interest of learner and teachers' safety, a decision was taken by officials to close certain schools in the districts, and schools in the Cape Town Metro District, Cape Winelands, Overberg districts, and also part of the West Coast will be closed today.
It hardly ever do you hear something like this in South Africa, by the way, that schools across a large area are closed. It shows you how serious this is.
Very true. In KwaZulu-Natal, the MEC for Kochta, Thulasizwe Buthelezi, is also expected to visit families in 3 local municipalities as well as lead relief efforts there, and that comes following the devastating fires also experienced earlier this week. And today, very important Cabinet Lekgotla gets underway. It's the new executive's first planning meeting, and policies adopted at this 2-day meeting will be setting government's priorities for the next 5 years, and the priorities and program of action outlined in the medium-term strategic framework will be determined by the manifestos of the 11 parties that's in the government of national unity. And to guide the politicians in coming up with the plans, senior civil servants have been looking at the manifestos of parties in the Government of National Unity, and the Forum of South Africa Directors General will be analysing the party manifestos as well, and then select items that are in line with the goals and targets of the country's national development plan. We also have the Patriotic Alliance Deputy President Kenny Kunene will be briefing the media. That's on post-election developments and just the PA's attitude towards the Government of National Unity. It's also expected that other prominent members of other political parties could be joining the Patriotic Alliance, and the Gauteng Department of Education's online application process for the 2025 academic year goes live today, and that will be until the 12th of August. And the online applications, we know, are only open to grade 1 and grade 8 applicants. And then lobby group Equal Education, they're not happy with Zizi Kodwa's appointment to the Education Portfolio Committee, and the lobby group has written to the ANC Chief Whip to register its concerns, and also calling for the immediate removal of Kodwa.
Well, how he ended up being sworn in as an MP when it seemed that maybe he wouldn't is still a story that hasn't been properly explained in my view. Thank you very much indeed. And Musa, 18 minutes after 6.
Stephen Grootes on SAFM.
All right, let's have a look at your weather around the country, and of course those warnings in force across the Western Cape this morning. A level 8 warning, disruptive rain, flooding, possible landslides expected over the city of Cape Town, Drakenstein and Stellenbosch municipalities in the Western Cape. Rain still a big issue at the moment. Tshwane today, fine, the forecast, 3 and 23. Johannesburg fine, 5 and 22. Vereeniging fine, 0 and 23. Bombela fine, 7 and 27. Polokwane fine, 0 and 22. Mahakeng fine, 4 and 25. Vryburg fine and windy, -1 and 25. Mangaung fine and windy, -1 and 23. Kimberley fine and windy, 4 and 25. Uppington fine and windy, 5 and 24. Cape Town cloudy, windy, widespread showers and rain, fresh to strong northwesterly wind, 14 and 16. George cloudy, isolated showers and rain in the evening, a moderate to fresh westerly wind, 15 and 20. Gqeberha fine, a moderate to fresh northwesterly wind, 13 and 24. East London fine, a light northwesterly wind, 12 and 26. eThekwini fine, a light to moderate northerly wind, 11 and 29. Richards Bay fine, a light to moderate northerly wind, 13 and 23. And Pietermaritzburg fine, 8 and 29.
It's Truck Month at Ford, and that means one thing. You save big when you upgrade to a 4x4. For a limited time only, get a Ford Ranger 4x4 from only $8,599 per month. Visit your nearest Ford dealer to get the best deal on a Ranger 4x4 from only $8,599 per month with free 4x4 driver training. TNCs apply.
The inaugural Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking Conference will take place from 10 to 12 July 2024 in Cape Town under the theme Africa Unlocked, Unlocking Africa's Growth. Tune in to the Full Circle with Bridget Masinga and the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda to get insights from the conference. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
City Lads ladies fully understand the big change maximum points can bring. They want out of danger. However, First Touch FC prefer a decent position in the top half. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Catch the Mzansi Queens of the beautiful game. City Lads Ladies FC versus First Touch Ladies FC on Sunday 14 July at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4, SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCsport.com. Hashtag we love it here. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international or global news.
21 minutes after 6, good morning. In Gaza, the military offensive against Hamas continues with an Israeli airstrike killing at least 27 people at a school complex near Khan Yunis. Israel says they used precise munitions to target a person they say is a terrorist linked to the Hamas attacks in Israel last year. In the meantime, hard to assess if there's really any progress towards ending the conflict there. Naeem Jina is a senior research associate at the Mapungubwe Institute for Strategic Reflection. Naeem, good morning.
Good morning, Stephen.
We continue to see more attacks like this, and there is obviously nowhere for Palestinians to move in Gaza. The situation there just appears to continue to get worse. Nothing seems to be changing at all, really.
No, not at all. I mean, the attack at the school in Khan Yunis, and of course, school now means that it's being used as a shelter for human refugees, was the fourth attack against a school in 4 days. So 4 schools attacked in 4 days in different parts of the Gaza Strip. You spoke about the number of people killed there, injured, etc. Similarly, in the others, the 3 days before that. The attacks all over the Gaza Strip continue in that kind of way, and the Israeli government clearly is not interested in slowing down or changing what's happening on the ground in terms of the genocide in Gaza.
Israel says it's targeting terrorists, and several weeks ago their Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the intense phase of the war was nearly over. Is there any sign of a shift in the strategy or the tactics or what the aims of the Israelis may be?
There isn't really a sign of any change, either in strategy or tactics, nor is there a sign of any change in terms of what the Israelis are achieving on the ground in terms of what their stated objectives. The ones that they call the terrorists are attacking their troops all over the Gaza Strip, including in those areas where they claim that the Israeli army is in control. Israeli soldiers have been given, it was revealed I think by Haaretz, the Israeli newspaper, have been given an instruction that they can shoot at anything that moves, and basically a carte blanche to attack whatever they want without having to get approval for it. And those tactics continue, despite supposed talks taking place, despite attempts supposedly at peace. There's no indication on the ground that there's any movement there.
So, I mean, the peace talks supposedly underway in Qatar. Who's actually meeting? I mean, are there any face-to-face talks? Is there any sign of progress at all? And Qatar's been hosting these talks for months.
Qatar, Egypt, and the United States as the host, yes, taking place both at different times in Cairo and in Doha. The talks are taking place, but there's now, after Sunday, there's been huge outcry in Israel, even from within the security establishment, saying that the Netanyahu government really doesn't want the talks to succeed because the talks resumed. There was a delegation that left from Israel, people from Mossad, etc., for the talks. And on that day, on Sunday, Netanyahu issued a statement saying that he has 4 non-negotiables. One of them being that he wants a guarantee from the mediators that the Israelis would be allowed to resume attacking Palestinians anytime during the ceasefire as they wish, which of course is not really a ceasefire. And so the impression within Israel now is that he is doing whatever he can to undermine any success for the talks. On the other, I mean, we also know that the plan that's on the table at the moment was announced on the 31st of May by Joe Biden, the American president, saying that it was an Israeli plan, but the Israelis continue to undermine it. From the Palestinian side, the Palestinians have this past weekend taken or withdrawn from one of their most important conditions, and that is that they wanted to begin phase 1 of the process only after they got an assurance that it will lead to a permanent ceasefire. They've now said that they will not make that a condition. So there seems to be great flexibility on the Palestinian side, but on the Israeli side, they're making it worse.
Within all of this, we've known for a long time that the United States is vital to to basically how far Israel can go. And there seems to almost be a sort of paralysis on the side of the Democrats at the moment because of the situation around the current president, Joe Biden. All of that means that there'll probably be no change from the US, even if one was possible. Now that probably won't come, and as things stand, Trump is looking stronger and stronger, which will have consequences for this conflict.
Yes, absolutely. And how to explain the fact that the United States supplies one party with weapons, gives it full political, diplomatic, and other strategic support as well, but then also says that it is a mediator is a bit of a difficult one to comprehend. But you're right, things are not going to change. And in fact, from the Democrat side, it's not just paralysis. I mean, the invitation to Netanyahu to Congress later this month is an invitation jointly from Republicans and Democrats in Congress. So they are, at least the political leadership, they are at one in terms of this issue, and it's not going to turn out well, I think, for certainly for the Palestinians, but not for the Americans either.
Naeem Jinab, thanks very much indeed, senior researcher at the Mapungubwe Institute for Strategic Reflection. 27 after 6.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning.
Good morning.
Wade van Niekerk, he's withdrawing from the 400 metres.
That's right, Stephen. He's opting for the 200 metres instead, aiming to boost our relay chances and also to avoid injury. Now, this decision opens up opportunities for van Niekerk to compete in the 4x100 metre relay, which will also boost South Africa's chances for multiple relay medals. The final national team selection will confirm his participation, with high hopes for van Niekerk's contribution to the country's medal tally. In the meantime, Kenya's former marathon world record holder and Olympic silver medalist Brigid Kosgei has pulled out of the Paris Olympics because of injury. The 30-year-old Kosgei, who set a world record of 2 hours, 14 minutes and 4 seconds for the women's marathon in Chicago in 2019, was hoping to make her second Olympic appearance after being named alongside the defending champion Perez Chepchirchir and former Olympic 5,000 silver medalist Helen Obiri, and that's in the women's marathon lineup. The Kenyan marathon team also includes the men's 2-time Olympic champion Eliud Kipchoge. Soccer news, Supersport United FC and Belgian League champions Club Bruges have agreed terms for the permanent transfer of winger Chandre Campbell for an undisclosed fee. Campbell has been part of the Supersport United soccer school system since the age of 11 and has won many accolades and was immediately promoted to the first team by head coach Gavin Hunt, notching 2 assists on his professional debut against Richards Bay in the PSL. He went on to play 24 games, scoring 5 goals and contributing 6 assists in the season. Elsewhere, Ollie Watkins struck a stunning injury time winner as England beat the Netherlands 2-1 last night to set up a Euro 2024 final showdown with Spain in Berlin. Here's Watkins.
Lost for words, really. I was just trying to describe it to Andy there. When you score, there's emotions that come through your body, but this is just a different feeling. It was slow motion when I was running over to the boys and celebrating, and it was I didn't want to get off the pitch at the end because I just wanted to soak it all in, because it doesn't happen often, obviously.
And finally, tennis. The former champion Elena Rybakina cruised into the Wimbledon semi-finals with a win over Elena Svitolina. She'll take on the Czechs Barbara Krejcikova. Here's Elena Rybakina.
It's only you guys telling me that I'm the only one left who won this tournament. I don't really think about it so much, but in 2022 I was definitely more nervous than now, and it was first time for me to play on center court. It was a lot of people, a lot of attention. Now, of course, I got used to it a little bit, and I'm taking these matches in a different way.
More sport, top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
Zai, thanks very much indeed. In a few moments, you'll hear from the new chair of SCOPA in Parliament, Rise Mzansi leader Songezo Zibi, with SFM leading the conversation 6:30.
Good morning. In the headlines, traffic authorities in the Western Cape say the De Kloof Pass near Paarl in the Boerland has been closed following mudslides. Several roads in rural areas are inaccessible. The George municipality has reported uprooted trees and fallen branches in several areas. Non-profit organisation Section 27 says the Life Esidimeni inquest judgment is an important step towards accountability. Judge Manaute Fu virtually delivered judgment in the High Court in Pretoria yesterday. And more Democratic lawmakers in the US have called on President Joe Biden not to stand for re-election in November. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
There were plenty of warnings issued about driving conditions today in the Cape Metropole and inland areas, and we can see exactly why. We've got fallen trees all over the city, some property damage as well, roofs being blown off, structures damaged through Ottery and Wynberg. We're looking at multiple closures of roads in the Mitchell's Plain area. That is because of flooding. That's because the rain is so heavy this morning. As per the warnings, just having a look at Mitchell's Plain, you've got Merrydale Road closed, part of Vestport Drive, part of AZ Development all closed down. And on my system here that I'm monitoring, just up the road there in Elsie's River, there's some really significant traffic congestion there as well. Sort of from 35th Avenue, Stellenbosch Arterial, from that junction just north of the airport, right through to sort of Voortrekker Road and Giel Besson, out through Elsie's, through Beacon Vale, through Norwood, that sort of area. Very unusual traffic patterns which would point to heavy rains and flooding in the region as well. Also, part of 35th Avenue is again closed in that Bishop Lavis area because of the floods. Heavy rains this morning, not only in Cape Town but outlying areas as well. So please travel only if absolutely essential to do so. Gauteng looks all right this morning, everything where it sort of should be, with the exception of the M2 going eastbound, leaving Joburg out towards Benrose. That's quite heavy. Looks like something may have crashed on that section of the M2 leaving town. And Durban this morning, some earlier protesting on the Higginson Highway at Chatsworth was cleared up pretty quickly, but there is a bit of a backlog just leaving Chatsworth towards the Havenside area. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
Intaling Lechela, good morning. How are you doing? Intaling Lechela, I think you're with us. Are you there? Good morning. All right, just hear from her in just a moment. Sorry about that. Not entirely sure what's happening behind the scenes at the situation. There's a lot of furious activity behind the scenes, I can tell you that. But not entirely sure what the problem is with Nkosi Lechele. Just trying to hear the situation on the markets and just see if she is, in fact, still with us. Nkosi, I understand you're with us. Good morning. How are the markets?
Hi, Stephen. I am with you finally. Well, it's another week of record high market performances with US stocks closing at fresh highs again in yesterday's trade. Now, the S&P 500 and NASDAQ powering through, being boosted by a sharp rise in semiconductor stocks. Moving over to Asia, it's green across the board. Those markets also being fueled by gains from the tech sector after TSMC sparked more optimism over AI. This resulted in Japanese stocks crossing new peaks. However, that upbeat mood did not filter through to local markets, with the JSE mostly in the red, the all share closing the day 0.1% lower. Taking a look at your currencies now, the rand remaining stable as traders await economic data out from the US and here at home. It's currently sitting at 18.12 to the dollar.
And then TSMC, they make semiconductors and all of that sort of thing. Their second quarter sales topping analysts' expectations.
That's right. So sales for the second quarter grew 40%. The group, of course, being boosted by a boom in demand for the advanced microchips required in AI technologies. Now, TSMC is the sole supplier of the microchips used by NVIDIA and Apple. And this update comes right after analysts raised risks associated with owning AI stocks. New Street Research analyst went further and downgraded NVIDIA shares to neutral from buy in an industry report that it dubbed a health check on AI stocks. Now, after that report was released, 8 of the 62 analysts tracked by FactSet have turned neutral equivalent stances on NVIDIA's stock. This move just weighing on overall sentiment in the space. Now, despite this, TSMC still managed to close the day in the green, up 2.3%.
And then SA imports and exports, they dropped dramatically in the first quarter. What happened?
It's all the issues at our ports, Stephen. This now is according to a survey by the UN Trade and Development. In the first quarter of the year, imports and exports both declined by 8%. Industries that were mostly affected were mining and agriculture, particularly the fruit industry. In recent times, we've seen the likes of Kumba Iron or Tungela Resources sound the alarm about issues at Transnet. The firm has been under scrutiny for some time now, and hopes have been pegged on its turnaround efforts as new leaders are now at the helm. In addition to the UN survey, there was also the World Bank Container Port Performance Index report ranking South Africa quite poorly, with the port of Cape Town the worst performing in the world. And recent PMI readings showed that port bottlenecks continued to weigh on sentiment in the manufacturing industry as imports were also delayed.
Nkosi Lechele, thanks very much indeed. Do appreciate it. Back, of course, in an hour. More business news through the day here on SAFM.
There's sponsoring a news feature. Then there's helping your clients make the news. Search Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking to see how far they can take your business.
Africa Update on SAFM Sunrise, a continental overview of current African affairs.
Russ Advocate Sipho Mantula, good morning.
Refreshing morning, Jumbo Africa to the listener.
In South Sudan, peace talks there, they might collapse. There's security laws about arresting people without an arrest warrant.
Stephen, remember that Kenya has been hosting this high-level meeting since May between the government representative and the rebel opposition groups who were not part of the 2018 agreement that ended a 5-year civil war. Now, when you look at the new law that is coming, that Salva Kiir must sign, it's the National Security Act, that some of the opposition and some of the members who are part of SPLM, they are now lamenting that it will violate the fundamental rights and freedoms of the South Sudanese. It will eliminate the civic and political space. And if you look, Stephen, these talks are very difficult, that they might even have to postpone their election end of the year because they have to deal with their finishing up their constitution, electoral laws, demarcation borders. So there's a lot if you look at the post-2018 peace talks of Addis Ababa. But now the Kenyan talks, they are now moving towards this bill that President Salva Kiir have to sign and approve within 30 days for it to can become a law.
And then in Senegal, the new president there, President Faye, he's marking 100 days in office.
Stephen, he's marking 100 days, but others are saying whether he has lifted the economic burden of the Senegalese coming from the food prices, the issues around reviewing laws on the oil and the gas and mining, and lately being involved as a mediator in the ECOWAS issue with the Sahel countries. And others are saying that since his first 100 days, Stephen, he has visited more than 5 African countries, Cote d'Ivoire, Mauritania, Gambia, Burkina Faso, and Mali. And has also been engaging, but there are some bills that are also being delayed in Parliament since last month. So they are assessing 100 days in office of the president of Senegal, Faye.
And then in Mali, they've signed a deal with Russia's nuclear company, Rosatom.
Stephen, Rosatom is not for the first time. If you can recall, they've also built one of the nuclear power plants in Egypt after the Africa-Russia summit. Now, with this one of Russia yesterday that they've agreed on the deal, it will include also the solar power generation. It will also look at the geological exploration projects. Remember South Africa in 2017, Stephen, were in that nuclear power deal with Russia of 9,600 megawatt. But with the scandal of the then former President Zuma, it was called off. We are also sitting as one of the operational first nuclear power station at the Quebec power plant in Cape Town. So you can see the relation when you look at Mali and Russia, that how important this issue of energy security. But Mali is looking forward to work with Rosatom as one of the companies of Russia that deals with nuclear power plants.
And then in Zambia, the SADC meeting today, what are they discussing?
So in this meeting, it is important of the Ministers of Foreign Affairs, Security, Defense to look at the issues of promoting peace and even security in the region. And remember, they are also preparing for the SADC summit that is going to Zimbabwe next month. And again, there will be protests even outside. There's a group called itself SADC Citizens Democratic Society that has been granted the right to can protest between today and tomorrow in Lusaka. They are saying that they don't want the inauguration of President Mnangagwa as the chair of SADC next month. But in Zimbabwe, they say they won't allow such protests that will happen in Zimbabwe. But in Zambia today, we'll see all those things panning out, Stephen, in terms of the SADC meeting of Ministers of International Relations and Cooperation. I wonder whether Ronald Lamola will be in that meeting, Stephen, or he will be in Western Cape.
And then in our archives this day, 11th of July, 1963, a big day.
It's a big day, Stephen. 61 years ago, we know this day it was when the then apartheid police raided the African National Congress underground headquarters here in Rivonia at Lily's Farm. They arrested Walter Sisulu, Governing Mbeki, Raymond Mhlaba, Ahmed Katrada, Lionel Benston, and Bob Halpern. Nelson Mandela was not around, Stephen. He was still serving his 5-year prison for leaving the country illegal in 1962. So if you look at this day, it is important in terms of navigating the history of the Rivonia trials that ended in 1964 in June. So it also marks 60 years of the Rivonia trial, but the arrest started 61 years ago on this day. Asante Sana SG, as still leading the conversation, SAFM, observing the International Mandela Month.
Rest Advocate Sipho Mantula, really appreciate the time. Thanks very much indeed. Back, of course, tomorrow morning is from our continent through the day here on SAFM, 18 minutes to 7.
There's listening to the news. Then there's making the news. Grow your business into the next big thing with Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking. When you choose Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking, you get access to our transactional banking solutions. Accessing our transactional banking solutions means you'll get a dedicated manager from the country's best relationship bank. When you have a dedicated relationship manager, their business is to understand your business and its financial needs. By understanding all your needs, they can connect you with the right sector and product experts across 15 key African markets. You see, there's transactional banking, then there's transactional banking with us. Search Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking. Standard Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
Good to hear from you this morning. Well, calls coming through, voice notes coming through as well. The Life Esidimeni scandal, the issue there, the findings there, of course, a very, very a big issue this morning. The situation in Cape Town, please, what are you experiencing with the rain? Expected to be quite heavy as the day progresses. Also, conversations around VBS Bank this morning. Voice notes coming through on 0614 104 107.
Yes, Stephen, you are right. The judge was supposed to invite the families into a courtroom. The accused in the accused box. What she did, it was disrespectful. She was looking for papers everywhere where she was. We had to adjourn for 3 times unnecessarily. So she was not even serious, that judge. You are right. It was kind of a disrespectful manner. Sakile from Emelo Mpumalanga.
Sakele, yeah, look, I mean, there might well be an explanation for it, but I was really surprised to see how that judgment was handed down yesterday. 16 minutes to 7.
Your geyser would have hot water, but some people overloaded the transformer with their illegal connections. You're late again, and the robots don't work. Some people vandalized it for copper. The whole community doesn't have electricity because some people have been bridging meters for a small fee, and now the transformer has exploded due to overloading. Don't allow illegal connections by criminals to inconvenience you and your community. Report criminals to Eskom on 0800 11 2722 or the SAPS. Save your transformer. Save lives.
Real savings, real benefits. Here's what real clients say about OUTsurance.
Hi, my name is Jackie. I'm 35 years old from Pretoria and I only pay 691 Rand for my 2022 Ford EcoSport with OUTsurance Comprehensive.
What makes the best car insurer? The best price with awesome service, right? SMS out to 30754 to see if you can pay less, experience awesome service, and see for yourself why OUTsurance was voted Best Car Insurer by many publications and Best Car, Home and Business Insurer at the News 24 Awards for the past 2 years.
I am not surprised they won all the awards because in my experience they are excellent.
They walk the talk. They actually do what they say and they follow through on their promises.
SMS out to 30754 and see for yourself. Experience awesome. Go to outsurance.co.za for a 10-minute quote that could save you thousands. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
In the heart of darkness, a beacon of light emerges. A brand new season is coming your way with your 2024 Miss South Africa Top 30. Hosted by our reigning queen, Miss South Africa, we embark on a transformative journey. Join us for the spectacular new season of Crown Chasers.
Crown Chasers is back.
Starts 29 June at 8:30 p.m. only on S3 Open Up.
Agenda setting conversations of the day.
14 minutes to 7. Good morning. In Parliament, members of the Police Portfolio Committee now agreed that the DA's Ian Cameron should be the chair of that committee, meaning he will now lead oversight of the police. You may remember a couple of years ago, he was an activist against crime at the time. It was, 2 years ago, I think. And famously, it was a famous incident at a meeting, a community meeting in Cape Town. The police minister, Becky Cele, was there. Ian Cameron stood up to speak and Cele told him to shut up. Do you remember that? It was quite a moment. Well, Becky Cele not back in Parliament anymore now. Well, Ian Cameron, the chair of the Parliamentary Committee on Police, joins us now. Ian, good morning.
Good morning, Stephen.
Did you ever expect to find yourself in this position? You've been an activist against crime for many years. Now you're a politician. Now you're chairing this committee.
No, I didn't see it coming. But that being said, I'm extremely grateful because, from an activist point of view, and I think at heart I'll always be a crime activist, I think it's a phenomenal opportunity to hold the necessary authority to account. And we've got a very important responsibility to try and restore that accountability mechanism that I believe sometimes was not necessarily taken as seriously as it should have.
What questions would you be asking the police? I mean, you will have, I presume, the senior police leadership, I presume the police minister, Sizo and Nkunu. What areas do you believe your committee should be focusing on?
Well, I think there are a few things. We had our first sitting yesterday after the election, and we had quite a lengthy discussion regarding the proposed budgets for the coming financial year, and it was very clear to me that resource allocation remains a problem in the South African Police Service, and of course IPID. I think what stood out to me, and these are the questions that would then lead, is why are we not pushing harder to get more detectives and crime intelligence capability, and so too with that specialized units. It's very clear when you look at crime statistics, even though the last quarters was not released, that they will be soon. It was very clear to us that we've got a crisis. We already know this. The reason why I'm repeating it is that it seems as though there's a gap between what is needed on the ground and what is perceived to be needed at the top. So it was a positive discussion, and it seems the minister definitely believes the same, but it's going to take some time. So resource allocation, I believe, is one of the crucial aspects. And then something that I feel very strongly about is the well-being of police officers. It's very easy to always point the finger at police, but we need to look after and cherish the good cops out there, and there are many of them, and we need to try and improve the circumstances under which they work.
Sizo Nkosi, the police minister, in my view, in my experience rather, a different character to Becky Clearly. What are you expecting from him?
Well, what stands out to me so far, and I would like to determine the opinion of him, regardless of previous ministers, is he comes across very humble. He comes across as someone that would just like to get a fair chance to get used to office. I think it's one of the most difficult, if not the most difficult, portfolios that he has been given, and it seems as though he does not shy away from what the reality is, and he made that very clear in the portfolio committee yesterday. So I believe that it's very important for him to play the minister's role and not try and be the commissioner, allow the commissioner and the relevant other senior management members of SAPS to do what they need to do, but while doing the relevant political oversight as his position is meant.
Ian Cameron, thank you. The DA's chair of the Police Portfolio Committee in Parliament. 9 minutes to 7.
SAFM. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Some fairly heavy delays coming out of Benoni through Boksburg. I believe that's a breakdown near Rietfontein, but it has been cleared. So hopefully that traffic on your way to Joburg, coming into Boksburg, all clear. Crash at Benrose on the M2 running eastbound. That's heavy this morning, leaving central Joburg on the way out towards Germiston area. Esidimeni, southern parts of KZN, more protests this morning. We saw it last night, cleared pretty quickly, but protesters have gone back into the area this morning. It seems to be between Esidimeni and Harding. So if you've got any plans to travel through there, might be a good idea to do it later this morning rather than sort of set off and get caught in that standstill traffic at the moment. Cape Town, plenty of warnings issued during the week about the enormity of the impact of today's storm conditions, and we can see that all over. The fallen trees, multiple locations, damage to property and infrastructure, largely roofs blown off and onto roadways, causing further obstructions. Severe flooding in Mitchell's Plain. Multiple major routes through the Mitchell's Plain central area are closed this morning, and exactly the same sort of deal up through the greater sort of Elsie's River area. So between Robert Sobukwe 35th Avenue, between that junction there and sort of 35th and Voortrekker, or Gilberson and Voortrekker, out through towards Epping and through Parow Industrial. Lots of routes underwater. Avoid travel through that area. It's absolutely gridlocking. Motorists unable to get through. Flooding on the N1 inbound at Kuburg at a change. On the M1 Service Road outbound at Century City. The list of flooding, fallen trees and debris obstructions will grow as we go through the morning. Very strong, severe winds and lots of rainfall, some of it torrential in places. Not the morning to be driving. Avoid it if you can. That's just picking up something at Solari's Pass. It's a stationary truck with some poor visibility as well. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
First in the morning, SAFM Sunrise with Stephen Grootes.
7 minutes to 7 the time. Well, the other big story in Parliament yesterday, and there were several of them, is confirmation that the leader of Rise Mzansi, Songezo Zibi, will now be the chair of the Standing Committee on Public Accounts. By parliamentary convention, this committee is usually chaired by a member of an opposition party. Rise Mzansi is technically part of the new coalition government, but does not have any positions in cabinet or any other positions in government, and so far as I know. Well, let's speak now to Songezo Zibi. Songezo, good morning. Thanks for your time.
Good morning, Stephen, and thanks for having me on.
Why did you agree to take this post? Why do you believe being chair of SCOPA is important?
South Africa's experience over the last 15 years in particular, Stephen, I think there were problems before, but they really worsened about 15 years ago, has had to do with the mismanagement and theft of public funds. And so if we are to restore the confidence of South Africans that Parliament, where all the political parties are, takes this problem seriously, it is important for all of us to be prepared to serve on a body like SCOPA. And I put my hand up and I said I'd like to serve on SCOPA.
We've seen during that time, if memory serves almost throughout all of that time, that in fact it was chaired sometimes by the leader of a smaller party, Themba Godi at one point, Mkleko Hlengwe from the IFP, slightly bigger party. Do you think SCOPA was really able to stop the misspending of money?
Stephen, I think SCOPA has done really good work over the years. I think the first time for me that I got to know about SCOPA is when Gavin Woods and Andrew Feinstein and others were on SCOPA during the arms deal scandal in the second term, and I think that SCOPA has done very good work over the years in terms of alerting South Africans to what is happening, holding the executive to account. But I also think that we need to up the game a little bit. We need to be more incisive, more accessible to the public, and to be more strident with the executive, which has not happened as much as it should have.
Okay, your party is technically a member of the coalition government, right?
Yes, we are part of the government of national unity.
Okay, so you're not really from an opposition party.
No, Stephen, I think there's very little. I mean, there are two factors. Firstly, we are not in cabinet at all, so we're not part of the executive. We don't even have a deputy minister. And had one of us, and we have two members in parliament, myself and Makashule Ghana, had one of us been part of cabinet, nobody from Rise Mzansi would have put up their hand to be on SCOPA out of that same principle. The second thing, Stephen, is that not being a member of a governing coalition that does not determine the level of effectiveness. Earlier on, I mentioned Gavin Woods. At the time, Chief Mangosuthu Buthelezi was in government, and the ANC members of the committee also had the ANC as a big majority party in Parliament. I think what matters is dedication to the Constitution, the mandate that is set in for MPs and SCOPA in particular, and commitment to the South African people, and that is what I am going to do.
I mean, at some point you might well have a big disagreement with probably the two bigger parties, the ANC and the DA, and as we know, if they agree on doing something in Parliament, that they have the votes to make it happen. How would you manage that if you're still a part of the coalition government? I suppose, let me put this another way. What do you gain from being part of the coalition government? Would it not now, with you as the chair of SCOPA, maybe be a better choice to just leave the coalition government? You get nothing else from it anyway.
No, Stephen, I mean, we don't need to leave it. I mean, there are two questions that you've asked. The first is about what do we do in terms of the interests of those two political parties. One of the reasons we're not in government is that we were always clear that we want to serve in Parliament. And Parliament has a particular role. And if Rise Mzansi is to maintain its credibility, we have to do the job as mandated by the Constitution. The people will see whether I do that work well or not. And if I do, there is a benefit for the South African people and Rise Mzansi as well. And I think for the government of national unity, in fact, because we need all the players to do their duty and to do it properly and to do it publicly.
If you do end up in a dispute, I mean, at some point you might have to chair a committee in a difficult moment. The chair we have seen, as you've pointed out, can be very important. You'll probably have to rely on support from members of parties that are in opposition. Songezo, do you think MK and the EFF will back you in those moments?
Look, I think they will. Actually, I've got very little doubt that they will, because I think we all see the same problems that we've had in Parliament, and I think the fact that no political party has won an absolute majority is a blessing in this case, because no single party can exercise its majority to the detriment of everybody else. And the different ministers, because SCOPA deals with issues on an issue-by-issue basis, not on a government-by-government basis. And I don't believe that DA ministers or the DA will necessarily back up an ANC minister and vice versa when something has been identified. And I think that is a good thing in this context.
Songezo Zibi, thank you very much indeed. Leader of Rise Mzansi speaking as the new chair in Parliament of the Standing Committee on Public Accounts.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
Well, lots of calls coming through, voice notes coming through as well this morning. And of course, we'll focus on the Life Esidimeni issue in a few moments. Voice notes on 0614 104 107.
Morning, Stephen, the team and the listeners. The Esidimeni tragedy happened because of greed. The Department of Health in Gauteng had to give tenders to the comrades of the ANC. That was the reason. Greed. That tender from Life Esidimeni had to be taken away for the comrades to eat. Sad. Naftal, Pretoria.
Nafta, thank you. Look, I hear the claim. I'm not aware of sort of evidence, but at the same time, it's never been clear to me exactly why this happened. So I know that people have made that point. Well, we'll focus on Life Esidimeni in the next little while. We'll hear from one of the families of the victims, and I think, still carrying the pain of what happened. We'll hear from a lawyer about what happens next, and then also Voyamaga from the Gauteng ANC. Of course, Kaldani Mahlangu was the Gauteng Health MEC when all of this happened. The findings against her yesterday. By the way, your mediated conversation after 8:30 this morning is around fans at football, rugby, cricket matches, about the role of supporters after all of the fuss around the super fans who will no longer receive government money. So we'll be talking about that from 8:30. Good morning, you're with SFM leading the conversation. It's 7 o'clock.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. Now that's good news.
In our top stories, some Western Cape roads closed due to floods and heavy snowfall and more pressure for Biden to quit US presidential race. Good morning. Traffic authorities in the Western Cape say the De Toits Kloof Pass near Paarl in the Boerland has been closed following mudslides. Several roads in rural areas are inaccessible. The George municipality has reported uprooted trees and fallen branches in several areas. Meanwhile, several sections of the Table Mountain National Park, as well as the whole Tankwa Karoo National Park in the Western Cape, have been closed due to floods and heavy snowfall. All access roads leading to the Tankwa Karoo National Park have also been closed due to snowfall. The non-profit organisation Section 27 says the Life Esidimeni inquest judgment is an important step towards accountability. Judge Mnau Tefu virtually delivered judgment in the High Court in Pretoria yesterday. The inquest was opened after the deaths of 144 mentally ill people in 2016. The aim was to establish who was responsible for the tragedy. Judge Tefu found that negligence of former Gauteng Health MEC Grootes Mahlangu and the former Gauteng mental health head Dr. Magabo Manamela led to the deaths of some patients. Section 27 CEO Sasha Stevenson says they welcome the judgment.
Judge Tefo noted that Ms. Mahlangu negligently terminated the Life Esidimeni contract despite expert advice and warnings, resulting in mental health care users being moved to NGOs that were ill-equipped and insufficiently experienced to care for them. This conduct, Judge Tefo stated, led to deaths that could have been avoided. Judge Tefo further stated that Dr. Manamela hastily facilitated the implementation of the project plan despite expert advice, and that the community-based NGOs were neither adequately qualified nor properly licensed.
The EFF in Parliament says it's opposed to the election of Rise Mzansi leader Songezo Zibi as the chairperson of the Standing Committee on Public Accounts, SCOPA. The ANC nominated Ziba for the position, which was generally reserved for opposition parties. EFF MP Veronica Menti says they are not opposed to Zibi as an individual, but she insists that Rise Mzansi is not an opposition party because it's part of the Government of National Unity.
We also rejected this, not because we are rejecting you as a person, but we reject the principle. The principle and the convention of this parliament has been that opposition must chair SCOPA. And as things stand, given the 29th May outcomes and the decision afterwards that this country will be governed with a government of national unity, which your party is part of, we do not consider your party opposition.
Some communities in the northwest have criticized Electricity Minister Nkosi for the remarks he made on load reduction in the country. In a media briefing earlier this week, Ramokgopa blamed the planned power outages on some municipalities' failure to invest in electricity infrastructure. Some residents of Mahikeng have questioned Eskom's capacity to provide electricity in the province. They say it's not fair to experience power outages even when rolling blackouts have been suspended.
But with little units, and when power outages are implemented, when the electricity returns, it comes back with little units, not the ones.
The units of electricity. The electricity price is killing us. You can buy it now with 10 rand, and at 1 p.m. it will be finished.
It's not fair for us to buy electricity while others don't buy it, but they don't get power cards. We should all be treated equally.
Further afield, and finally, more Democratic lawmakers in the US have called on President Joe Biden not to stand for re-election in November. Writing in the Washington Times, one of them, Peter Walsh, said Biden should withdraw for the good of the country. The BBC's Peter Bowes has the details.
Momentum is growing. It has been for the last few days, this constant drip of criticism of the president. Peter Welsh, a senator from Vermont, writing in the Washington Post an opinion piece saying he is very worried about November's election. He says there is so much at stake, and specifically he says Americans cannot unsee that moment in the debate between Mr. Biden and Donald Trump when Joe Biden was simply confused, he couldn't get his words out.
Recapping the top story, traffic authorities in the Western Cape say the De Kloof Pass near Paarl in the Boerland has been closed following mudslides. For SFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Those were the top stories for this hour. Don't miss out on a possible car insurance saving. SMS out to 30754 for a quote. Outsurance, where you always get something out.
Are you shopping around for the best car insurance deal on the market? 46-year-old Zanella got a great deal on her car insurance when she called Outsurance. She now pays only 1,313 Rand to insure her white 2023 Audi Q2 1.4T FSS Linestronic. Get an Outsurance quote and see if you could save. SMS out to 30754 now. That's out to 30754. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
A very good morning to you in your SFM sports headlines. It's the South African superfans who are demanding a meeting with the Sports Minister, Gayton McKenzie. And in athletics news, Wade van Niekerk withdraws from the 400-meter event at the Paris Olympics. Details just before 7:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
From the Benoni side this morning, a breakdown at Redfontaine Road, backed everything up, but that's now been replaced by a crash scene near Rondebold. So very heavy coming through Tom Jones and Atlas Road as you make your way slowly, and heavy traffic out of Benoni through Boksburg. Crash on the M2 eastbound around Joe Slovo, or just past Joe Slovo out towards Benrose. So very heavy backlogs leaving central Joburg direction Germiston. And we're looking at quite a heavy backlog now on the N1 North, just queuing from Soweto, moving through towards the Gordon Road exit. It looks like track possible crash there. Protesting again this morning, southern parts of KZN along the N2, Isilgulweni through to Harding is the obstructed section of roadway there. Good idea to travel later. And Cape Town, despite the warnings to travel only if essential due to the storm that's making its way through the region, a lot of traffic ignoring that and just ending up in a real bind in some serious and significant flooding in the Parow and Elsie's river areas. Multiple routes are closed, multiple routes are jammed. If you're heading through Parow Industrial, Parow Central, or Elsie's, the greater Elsie's river area, just factor in some queue time. It really is significantly backed up through there. Fallen trees is the other issue right across Cape Town, multiple locations, and multiple closures as well in the Mitchell's Plain area. Major routes in Mitchell's Plain are closed because they're underwater. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
SAFM Sunrise. A vivid start to your day.
8 after 7, good morning. You're with SAFM Sunrise. I'm Stephen Grootes. All right, so obviously the big issue, several big issues this morning, and we'll focus on life Esidimeni in just a moment, just because the consequences of it, the findings are so important. That'll be the big focus for the next 20 minutes or so. Just watching the situation in the Western Cape, that level 8 warning for rain still in force today, and we expect, I think, as the day goes on, that we will see a lot more rain there. Many schools closed in that area. Just let us know what the situation is, how it's affecting you, please. More also on some of the big changes yesterday. So we saw the changes in Parliament. You heard from Zungezo Zibi and Ian Cameron a moment ago. Also in eThekwini, Cyril Gaza, now the new mayor in eThekwini. He's from the ANC. And of course, we don't yet know if what's happening in national government, the coalition government, is going to move to local government or not. Seems that maybe it did in eThekwini yesterday. Cyril Gaza elected unopposed, so the DA didn't put up a candidate. In Ekurhuleni yesterday, we saw the mayor there speaking about some of these issues. So there's a lot moving this morning. You know the number, 086 000 2032. It's 9 minutes after 7. Good morning.
Agenda-setting conversations of the day.
Well, a series of important, perhaps critical findings by the High Court in Tshwane yesterday, with Judge Monwa Tefo finding that the former Gauteng Health MEC, Qadani Mahlangu, and the former head of the Mental Health Directorate, Dr. Makgabo Manamela, can be held criminally liable for the deaths of at least some of the 144 people who died after they were forced out of the Life Esidimeni facility and into unlicensed NGOs. Tefo said Mahlangu and Manamela had created the conditions in which these people died. She also said that Manamela could have saved many lives if she had simply visited the NGOs to see the conditions there. It's now 8 years since this happened in 2016, and there's still at least one more legal process. The NPA now has to decide whether to charge Mahlangu and Manamela with culpable homicide. We'll focus on the legal aspects in just a moment. First, Rashida Landis' son, Cedric Isaacs, was one of those who was forced to leave the Life Esidimeni facility in 2016. He was lucky enough to be able to survive what happened. Rashida, good morning, and thank you for agreeing to speak to us this morning about what happened yesterday and about what happened 8 years ago.
Hi, good morning, and good morning, listeners. Thank you for having me on the radio.
How did you feel watching the judgment yesterday, hearing that Qadani Mahlangu and Makgabo Manamela are responsible for what happened?
We do have mixed feelings about this because they were not alone in this tragedy, this unprecedented tragedy. But it's a start. It's a start, and we just hope and pray that the full judgment we will be allowed to see it. And yes, criminal charges must follow.
Do you believe the NPA then must prosecute them? And the NPA could take quite a long time to make a decision. Do you believe there's a need for them to sort of move on quickly with this?
We've been waiting 8 years. We've been fighting this thing for 8 years, and now after 8 years, there's a start. Because when we went to Justice Moseneke, or when he took the case on, it was not about money and everything. It was about justice, and this is justice. And I'm so happy somebody listened and found that Qadani Mahlangu and Dr. Manamela is responsible for them, for their death. And I think that the criminal charges would lead to murder afterwards, because, really.
Sure. Murder, I mean, the finding was criminally liable, and I can imagine lawyers arguing about this for ages. So you believe that these two people, Mahlangu and Manamela, you would take it to murder?
I would take it to murder because Mahlangu was warned. She was begged. We went on our knees and we begged the parents, the families. And I just feel she just shrugged us off and she just did what she wanted to do, because when I asked her, the 5th of December 2015, MEC, please give us an opportunity to relook. I asked her that you do a site visit to the NPOs, the NGOs that you're going to send our children to. She laughed at me.
She laughed at you?
She laughed. And we were a hall full of people, families.
Sure.
They asking her, begging her to give us a chance.
There's so many questions. I mean, in your case, in Sadiq's case, I presume he was forced into an NGO. What happened to him?
He was forced into an NGO, yes. He was moved and we didn't know where he was.
Aye.
And due to that, I suffered a stroke because I was stressing. I didn't know where he was. We hear about the people that died. And somebody one Thursday evening found my daughter to say he is here in Germiston. And when we visited that in NGO, I wish you can pay a visit to one of the NGOs they sent our kids to. And I asked for the owner of this place, and she came and she arrived in a big 4x4. And she told me, I wish the government would just take these people from my premises. I mean, come on.
Sure. So, I mean, they were being supposedly looked after by someone who didn't want them there in the first place. I mean, all of this is a crazy story. Do we know at any stage why this happened? I mean, Rashida, there's been so much speculation about this. I mean, do you have a sense of why the MEC pushed this project so hard?
You know what? In government, there is in all the portfolios, you need to save money. And I think she thought that they're going to save money on the mentally disabled and the voiceless, because they are voiceless. Do you understand? But the families are not voiceless. And the person that is really also responsible for this is then Premier Makuru, because he was the captain of the ship then. And obviously he must have given instructions to save money, and they thought that they will get away with it.
As I understand it, I think 44 people are still missing. I mean, I can't imagine the pain for those families.
Exactly. And some people don't even know where the graves are of their families. So how do you deal with it? It's a wound that's never going to heal.
Rashida, thank you. Rashida Landis is the mother of Sadiq Isaacs, one of those who was forced to leave the Life Esidimeni facility. It's an amazing story, and some of these stories have been told before and still have the capacity, the ability to shock you when you hear them. You're with SFM, it's 7:15. Let's find out a little bit more about the legal side of all of this. Ulrich Roos, founder and managing director at Ulrich Roos & Associates, represented some of the families in this. Ulrich, good morning to you. We have the inquest finding yesterday, the finding that Mahlangu and Manamela are criminally liable. What happens from here?
Hi, good morning, Stephen. Thank you for having me. Yes, so my firm represents approximately 60 of the family members and the patients who were moved from Life Esidimeni to these various NGOs. We have assisted thus far in securing payments for these families in accordance with Justice Moseneki's ruling when he conducted an investigation into this entire tragedy. On top of that, we've also assisted in this inquest finding on behalf of the families. So what Judge Tefu essentially found is that there must be responsibility placed at the doorstep of someone higher up or someone who was in charge at the time, which led to the death of these patients. And of course, at the time, the former Gauteng Health MEC, Kodani Mahlangu, and the former head of Gauteng Mental Health, Dr. Manamela, essentially were responsible at the time for this decision having been made. And he has found that there was definitely negligence involved in this decision, which led to the death of these patients. And it's now up to the NPA to compile a proper case docket and then to present the case in court on criminal charges against these two individuals. Now, at this stage, the finding that has been made by Judge Tefo is that there was negligence involved, and of course, the definition of culpable homicide is the unlawful, negligent killing of another person. So, I think that we can expect that in due course charges of culpable homicide will be preferred against them, and then the criminal matter must run its course. Just to add on to the family member who spoke earlier, should the NPA find that the negligence was of such a nature that it could be converted to murder on the grounds of dolus eventualis, then they can change that charge. Now, of course, the entire South African community who followed the Oscar Pistorius case became experts on the term dolus eventualis, and that, in a nutshell, is that if a person could foresee that their actions could lead to the death of another person and reconcile themselves with that fact, then they can be charged with murder dolus eventualis. One would have to wait and see if that is indeed what the avenue that the NPA is going to follow.
Can the NPA also investigate if other people were involved, or is it only confined now because of the findings of this to Manamela and Mahlangu?
No, they can certainly. They can obviously be led by this finding by Judge Tefo in the Gauteng North High Court. But should they have sufficient evidence to indicate that other people were also involved and were also negligent, and that their negligence led to the death of these patients, then they can certainly charge them as well.
Does the NPA, after this finding, so the finding is by the inquest, by a judge, does the NPA now have to charge them, or can it make its own independent decision?
It can make its own independent decision. The NPA is an independent authority, and the separation of powers doctrine applies, where ultimately the NPA makes a final decision on whether to prosecute a person or not. But I do think that they will heavily rely on this inquest finding by Judge Tefo.
It was a very strange, and it may be a small thing in the context. I mean, the important thing is the findings and what happens next, and justice for the victims, Orach. But I was surprised by the way in which the judgment was handed down yesterday. Was there any reason why it had to be handed down virtually? I know the inquest was held virtually because it was during the pandemic, or was it just up to the judge to decide how to do this?
No, that is up to the judge. I think that one of the factors that he could have considered in handing it down virtually is the fact that there are so many families and people involved in this matter, and it could have possibly been a logistical issue with all of them being at court, etc. So I don't think we should read too much into that. Our system has evolved quite substantially, where we run trials at the moment virtually, and where we do make use of the virtual platform to a large extent in the law today. So I don't think we need to read too much into it.
Ulrich Roux, thank you very much indeed. Managing Director at Ulrich Roux and Associates, as you heard, representing many of the families involved in this. 21 minutes now after 7. Well, of course, the people who made the decision, Dr. Manamela, were working at the time for the Gauteng provincial government. This has been one of the issues which has really been, in a way, puts the focus on the situation in the Gauteng provincial government. Voyo Maga is the spokesperson for the Gauteng provincial government. Voyo, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Steve. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How do you see yesterday's verdict? It shows that two people working for the Gauteng provincial government, one a political appointment, one actually in the employ of the Gauteng provincial government, are criminally liable for what happened.
Yeah, no. Steve, we do welcome fully the findings by the judge, and hopefully the matter somehow, of course, it cannot complete, bring a bit of relief to the families and those who have been involved in the process. And as your previous, contributor just said, obviously we all wait what steps will the NPA take but there is a bit of relief that at least somehow there is a form of closure.
I mean, Mahlangu is no longer in the Gauteng provincial government. I presume Dr. Manamela is no longer in the provincial government either.
Yeah, correct.
Okay. In a way, the next question then becomes, can we be certain that something like this will never happen again, and have procedures changed in the Gauteng provincial government so that when people raise the alarm about something, they're actually going to be listened to?
No, indeed. I think if you check our statement together with the fact sheet, we're deliberate to release the fact sheet just to appraise the residents of Gauteng how far we have gone to implement some measures as directed both Dr. Makgoba as well as the former Deputy Chief Justice in terms of increasing the infrastructure, in terms of having the mental review board with experts, in terms of running campaigns to deal with that. Also in terms of increasing the human personnel and to put enough resources, but also in some of our institutions to do that. So basically these are the lessons drawn from the particular issue to make sure that we do take care of the most vulnerable in our society.
So people who are mentally ill in the government system in Gauteng are being properly cared for now. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's what I'm basically saying, including the NGOs that we work with, about 144 of them, who have been fully accredited. You'll remember part of the issues that came out in the previous, commission by Judge Museneta was that some of those NGOs were not necessarily fully licensed. So those kind of issues going forward have been dealt with. As I've said, some of the hospitals have been actually used to accommodate that aspect, including experts in almost all our districts.
Voyomaga, thank you. Spokesperson for the Gauteng Provincial Government, 24 after 7 with SFM. Dr. Aslam Daso is convener of the Progressive Health Forum. Dr. Daso, good morning to you. It's been 8 years just to get to this point for the victims of the Esidimeni tragedy. We had the findings yesterday at the inquest, still a long process to go. Do you believe that the Gauteng Health Department is able to now properly care for people who are mentally ill?
Good morning, Stephen. Yes, it's been a long 8 years. A harrowing 8 years for many in this a tragic disaster, that was of such proportion that I think we still remain shocked at the level of neglect here. I'm not sure that this is properly remedied. Ever since that happened, the Department of Health in Gauteng has, not ever caught up with its deficiencies. If anything, it has worsened in many ways. And over the years, we've experienced many like Esidimeni-like disasters as a result. So, no, the short answer to your question is absolutely not. The Gauteng Department of Health is a beleaguered organization unable to meet its mandate.
Are we any closer to really understanding what drove this, why people were so determined? I understand as a government official there's pressure on you to save money. But still, extreme measures were being taken, despite the fact that families, that other people were trying to stop this from happening. It's confusing to me as to why we still don't have a very clear understanding of what really drove the officials, or in this case, the two people, Mahlangu and Manamela, who made this decision.
Yes, it does perplex one at times because, certainly Manamela and other clinical staff with clinical backgrounds are properly trained people. Now, in South Africa, your health workers are thoroughly trained and examined and understand their remits. There is something that occurs once they occupy positions of authority that we can see in this country. And that is probably a combination of, an overweening authoritarian political leadership mixed with their inability to act ethically against what they are told. And it happens everywhere. In fact, you find that most of the problems we face around the country through many provincial health departments, that's actually the case. And it's very dispiriting. It's it's a centralizing force that political heads apply that brooks no dissent, that takes away authority from those who are best able to optimize the healthcare delivery platform. And it's the direct, proximate cause of the problems we see.
Dr. Aslam Darsop, thank you, convener of the Progressive Health Forum. You're with SAFM 27 minutes after 7.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning. So the superfans are cross because government won't pay for them to, be superfans.
Yeah, understandably so. They are upset. Their passion, their support, vital apparently, and cutting them out of funding could impact the morale and the growth of sports. Now, that's what superfans led by Esidimeni are saying, and they're demanding a meeting with the new sports minister, Gayton McKenzie, after he announced the end to taxpayer-funded overseas trips to superfans. Now, the minister made the decision via social media. It has caused confusion and concern amongst these dedicated supporters. They argue that their presence promotes social cohesion and supports national teams. Superfan Esidimeni elaborates.
If they tell me, without sending a message, whatever they tell me as we started, or maybe we agree, they can say, no, that was not a gentleman agreement. It was right and black and white. We are no longer going to use you because ABC. So now, when this comes to me and say, we are no longer going to sponsor you, they will tell me why there is. We need them to support the national team. The national team, the players, they need us, we need them. This is our duty as a club to support them.
Meanwhile, a group of Chinese table tennis superfans have threatened to protest at the Paris Olympics over the decision not to pick one of the country's best players after saying authorities had silenced them at home. Members told the Post that fans at the Games were likely to hold up banners and distribute flyers as part of a continuing campaign against the decision of the Chinese Table Tennis Association to leave out the world number 2 Wang Manyu. And closer to home, South African sprinter Wade van Niekerk has been removed from the 400-meter qualifiers for the Paris Olympics, focusing instead on the 200-meter event. Despite clocking the 5th fastest time internationally in the 400-meter last year, van Niekerk's persistent injuries have led him to choose the less taxing 200-meter race. Soccer action. Ollie Watkins struck a stunning injury time winner, England beating the Netherlands 2-1 last night to set up a Euro 2024 final showdown with Spain in Berlin. Tennis action. The former champion Elena Rybakina cruised into the Wimbledon semi-finals with a clinical win over Elena Svitolina on centre court. The 25-year-old Rybakina will face the Czech's Barbora Krejcikova, who battled past Yelena Ostapenko. In the men's draw, Lorenzo Musetti had a 5-set win against Taylor Fritz in the quarterfinals, and that's to set up a semi-final clash with a 7-time champion at Wimbledon, Novak Djokovic. It's the first time the Italian has reached the last 4 at a Grand Slam.
Surrounded by really good emotions and really happy of what I have achieved today, and really happy on the way I fought until the end. And I found a way to, develop my game set after set, and it was really a big reaction for me on the 5th, where I probably played my best tennis.
More sport on Sunrise. Top of the hour, I'm Zai Khan.
Zai, thanks very much indeed. In the next half hour, Cyril Klaber, the new mayor of eThekwini, you with SFM, leading the conversation at 7:30.
Good morning. In the headlines, families of the victims of the Life Esidimeni tragedy say they have indicated after the inquest judgment. Judge Tefu virtually delivered in the High Court in Pretoria yesterday. The inquest was opened after the deaths of 144 mentally ill people in 2016. The city of Cape Town says it has received numerous reports of flooding as well as obstructions on roads, and the ANC Youth League says the conduct of the Sports, Arts and Culture Minister Gayton McKenzie is unacceptable. It says the newly appointed minister should avoid making hasty decisions and attacking creatives. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Still some delays coming out of Benoni and Boksburg on the N12 down to a crash near the Rondebold exit. Traffic parking back now towards the Snake Road exit. The Mike 1, that's quite heavy from Boysons all the way through to about Oxford Road in the Parktown area before you're out of that. The run through Midrand, busy but a little bit lighter perhaps this Thursday than what you might normally expect. And Pretoria East battling along. There's traffic lights down on Solomon Mhlanga and Delphi. That's just before you get into Grasfontein Junction coming from the Mamelodi side. So it's already busy. Possible closure today of the N2 between Port Shepstone and Harding due to a further outbreak of protesting in the Islingulweni area. If you got to go sort of Eastern Cape, KZN, and you arrive at the N2, you may well find yourself being diverted or stacked up into that one. Cape Town, heavy rain, torrential in areas, and a couple of parts of Cape Town are literally submerged. Try and avoid Paro Industria, Elsie's River. There's multiple routes that are flooded, multiple routes that are jammed, and a lot of traffic just unable to get any way through that because the roads are blocked by flooding. Same sort of deal with Mitchell's Plain as well. You'll have to be very careful. A couple of major routes, including AZ Berman and Westport Drive, are being closed because of flooding and fallen trees. The other issue, widespread instances of trees falling down. And then flooding on the N1 inbound before Kuba get a change, so that's quite slow coming through from Paro. And we're just starting to look at some delays on the N2 out of town in towards the Langa area. If you're on your way to the airport, that's going to get in your way and hold you up. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
Intal Ling, thanks. Good morning again. How are the markets this morning?
Kicking things off in Asia, those stocks tagging along with a Wall Street rally overnight that saw another round of record highs as bets on a September interest rate hike surged. Of course, this follows comments by the Fed Chair's Jay Powell. With that, the Japanese Nikkei is up 1.1% and China's Shanghai index gains 0.85%. In Wall Street, futures are flat as traders await the US CPI print being released later today. Back at home, sentiment is quite sour with the JSE mostly trading in the red. The All Share down 0.12%, fueled by losses in the Financial 15. And taking a look at your currencies now, the rand showing some strength, trading at 18.10 to the dollar from 18.12 about an hour ago.
And then Pick and Pay, they're going ahead with that rights offer. Very interesting.
That's right. Now, Pick and Pay shareholders have given management the thumbs up to proceed with a rights offer worth 4 billion rand. Now, a rights offer is when companies grant shareholders the right, but not the obligation to buy new shares at a discount to the market price up to a stated future date, and it's used to raise capital for said company. In Pick and Pay's case, management would like to use the monies to shore up its balance sheet and reduce debt. This, of course, comes after it reported an annual loss of 3.2 billion rands as its Pick and Pay supermarket business struggled to compete in a competitive retail market, taking on the likes of ShopRite and Woolies. Now, this rights offer combined with the proceeds from the planned Boxer IPO is said to be catalyst in the group's turnaround strategy. Now, markets were pleased with the plan, sending shares up over 2% in yesterday's close.
And then Teresa seeing an improvement in the platinum group metals market.
That's right, Stephen. Now, Teresa's CEO, Phoevius Parolis, said the company delivered an increase in output for platinum in the third quarter. He noted that the group experienced a slight improvement in PGM prices. Now, this supports the market view that the bottom of the market has passed. This after the industry saw the worst of an 18-month price correction, which resulted in a decline in profits, high expenses, and job losses at many mining companies exposed to this market. This includes Sibanye-Stillwater, Impala Platinum, and Anglo American Platinum. All three companies announcing big job cuts over the past 18 months. So an uptick in prices would work in the benefit of these miners. Parolis also highlighted that the narrative for PGMs is changing with the realization that the internal combustion engine, which uses PGMs, will remain around much longer. Some analysts, though, did not support this view, saying that demand profile for the metals appears to be softening in 2024 and that we'll likely only see a recovery in that sector next year.
It's such a great question, isn't it? How long are we going to be using, internal combustion engines for? Intaleng Lechela, thanks very much indeed. Back, of course, tomorrow. More business news through the day here on SAFM.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
All right, lots to talk about. You've heard about the Life Esidimeni tragedy. The situation in eThekwini this morning. Cyril Klaba, the new mayor there, what are the big challenges he faces? What's happening in Cape Town, please, in the Western Cape? We understand that heavy rains, major problems there, of course, this week. Stephen in Centurion. Stephen, hi, good morning. Life Esidimeni.
Yes, Steve. Look, the problem about our leaders in South Africa is that they think these positions are meant for them. They think that they just fell from the sky, and then this position. They are so arrogant, even, and that there was no good intention when they removed these people from Life Esidimeni. Even the intention there was just corruption, because there is criteria when you do all this kind of work. Did they tick all the boxes? No, because some of the NGOs were opened, few months before this decision were made. So they knew that there is going to be transfer of patients, and then they just positioned themselves to loot. So once they got the money from the government, they didn't want these patients anymore. They want government to come and fetch them. They have money now. They bought cars, all these sort of things. Now they neglect those people. They don't like them anymore. They don't want to see them. So the problem about here in South Africa is that corruption is institutionalized, Stephen. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Just check now, Mr. McKenzie. They attack him from left and right, because all what he said. He said, "Bring the list so that I can see who did you pay for." Is it too much to ask? But because there's a corruption there, they don't want that. They are fighting.
Yeah.
And the likes of this fencing, Saddam Maki and Mam Joyce, I think those people, they cannot come here tell public that no, it is us. Why them? I think what McKenzie must do now is not just to scrap it out. It's a good concept, yes, but he must come and say, group yourself, fence, come and present. Come and present, and then we will take it from there. It will not be, it is us or no one. No, what are they bringing to the game? Nothing. Some of them, they don't even go to stadium anymore. So that's the thing. Thanks, Stephen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephen. I appreciate that. Look, there's a lot around the superfan issue. I kind of think if people really want them, they'll pay for them. I don't know about government paying for them, I must say. I'm a bit, we'll talk about it more from 8:30, but you might well have a strong view on that on 086 000 2032. Chris in KwaZulu-Natal, Life Esidimeni. Hi, good morning.
Good morning. It's the judgment and all the other previous ones. A serious call to the new minister that he needs to take into account healthcare funding, particularly mental health care resources, both in terms of funding as well as staffing, because there is a serious crisis. The point is that the reason how we got there is that public institutions did not have space to absorb these people. So, and therefore they contracted with Life to take care of them. And that happens throughout all other provinces. It's the same thing, because mental health care is taken as an orphan child that was just brought in, whereas we have got a serious crisis. And secondly, mental health care needs to be interrogated in schools. We need to assess children early and not catch them when they are old, so that interventions must be taken at an earlier stage. And thirdly, as society, we need to normalize checking ourselves if we are mentally, I don't want to say, okay, our mental health status on a regular basis. And lastly, Stephen, it's a serious message to public servants. Do not be bullied by political appointees. I feel sorry for Dr. Manaman, because I used to work there. I know what kind of a person she is.
Yeah, I hear you, Chris. And one of the things that came out of it, and Aslam Daso also referred to it, is just how the officials were sort of bulldozed. And we saw testimony about that, didn't we?
Yes, it's true. Actually, Stephen, I'm telling you, I was working at Gauteng Health. I saw this group of people coming into the office and demanding that they be given a tender. Your voice note was correct. It was, for them, it was just a tender. It wasn't about people's life. It was about earning money.
Chris, thank you, on the line from KwaZulu-Natal. Your views on this, 086 000 2032.
What's up, good people? It's Bulela Podisa, the girl from next door that you can call friend. This is Deal or No Deal Celebrity. Catch us every Saturday at 6 p.m.
The inaugural Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking Conference will take place from 10 to 12 July 2024 in Cape Town under the theme Africa Unlocked, Unlocking Africa's Growth. Tune in to The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga and The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda to get insights from the conference. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Get ready to make your life easier with TV License's new website features. We upgraded to the secure iVery 3D payment gateway and the ability to manage your account information, view, print, and download a detailed TV license statement. You can make website queries for an account and technical support, which has made things immensely easier. It is now a smooth, effortless process that can respond to all user inquiries quickly and efficiently. It is a great way to quickly get the help you need without worrying about a thing. Get started now and enjoy the convenience of TV License's new website features. Visit www.tvlic.co.za today. TV Licenses, do it for the convenience that matter.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
17 minutes to 8. Good morning. In eThekwini yesterday, the new mayor, the ANC Cyril Kaba, elected unopposed. He now replaces the former ANC mayor, Nkosi, who's moved to the National Council of Provinces. Well, the new mayor is on the line now, Cyril Kaba. Mr. Mayor, good morning and thank you for your time. Welcome back to SAFM.
Good morning, SG. Thank you very much for welcoming me.
You take over eThekwini at quite a difficult time, and you spoke about some of the problems yesterday. Major problems with water. Many people have told us, as I'm sure you've heard, they phoned in and said, look, service delivery in eThekwini has deteriorated over the last few years. What hope can you give to residents that you'll fix those problems?
Well, I am aware of those challenges, Stephen. Remember, I'm also a resident in eThekwini, and so the team the administration has started to work on some of these issues, but the community or the residents don't feel that they have been responsive enough, and or the turnaround was as it is is what they are actually saying, because the issues always on responsiveness as well as the turnaround time to deal with the issues that the community is raising. Remember, the residents of eThekwini pay their salaries, and they deserve better. And they are not just our customers, but they are also our boss. So we need to treat them as such.
In some cases, it seems, and I wonder if the city of eThekwini actually has the capacity to fix these problems. I mean, we've heard from people in Verulam, for example. It's just one example. There are other areas that have been without water for a very long time. But in Verulam, people were sent to go and conduct maintenance, didn't even know where some of the structures were. The community had to say, if you dig here, you'll find the pipe you're looking for. Things like that. Does eThekwini actually have the capacity to fix its problems?
Well, it's not going to be easy for me to comment on that, and I will be meeting with the top management and drilling down to these issues, starting first with the IDP, the Integrated Development Plan, their budget, and all the statements that the public statements that they've actually made, and then we see how much of that has in fact been done, because if their performance agreements are not linked back to the IDP and the budget, it means that there's a disjuncture there. You need to start to address that. Why we have people staying without water for an extended period? It means that there's been a dereliction of duty. Then there must be consequence management. If there are no consequences, then of course, and the people are going to do as they please with all the resources, and the manpower we have. We'll still have people complaining and saying their issues are not being addressed. So that's what I would need to attend to.
The politics in eThekwini is very interesting, very complicated in some cases, Mr. Mayor. You were elected unopposed yesterday. Do you see that as a sign of support from the IFP and the DA, who are part of the provincial coalition in KwaZulu-Natal and part of the national coalition? Did they decide not to oppose you deliberately as a sign of support?
Well, I don't know. Maybe you need to ask them. But look, they still could have, presented a candidate, opposed my nomination, or abstain. They still had that option, and so their support, I don't take it lightly, and I take it as a sign of trust and confidence in my leadership. I have an open door policy. I will engage with the leaders of political parties, business, community leaders, because before I formulate my own vision or my own plan, at least in my mind, I must have heard what the people who matter in the province say about the performance of the city. I know what I know. But I don't know everything. So it's better that you be patient. I mean, people are complaining about, incorrect billing information. And those people are willing, what you call ratepayers. But they are saying, and we have this problem. And once that problem still exists, they get disconnected when we ought to be addressing the problem so that you have happy residents, because they pay for their services, and so that's the point that we'll have to sit down and address with the leadership of eThekwini.
We expect a local government election in 18 months from now, which means in about 6 months from now, political parties will start campaigning. At the same time, you have your party, the ANC, in a coalition in national government with the DA and the IFP and others, and in the provincial government in KwaZulu-Natal, as I said. Do you expect the national government coalition to be reflected in local government? Let me put it another way. Do you expect, as the mayor of eThekwini now, that your party will campaign against the DA and the IFP in the local government elections while still being in a provincial and national coalition with them?
Well, remain distinct political parties, but we are coalescing for purposes of governance, but we'll still be competing for votes, and but we'll not do it in a manner that undermines the coalition arrangement. So, and we are very clear that we separate issues where we approach them as political parties and issues where we approach them as a government. Remember, if you are in government, you are a government for all the people. I've been elected a mayor in the eThekwini municipality, but I'm not just a mayor of the African National Congress. I'm a mayor of everyone, including people who did not vote for the ANC. So I must, in my conduct, in my performance, I must reflect that. So the roles are distinct. Where as politicians we are able to separate the two roles.
Let's see how that plays out, Mr. Mayor. The other complicating factor in KwaZulu-Natal for you is Sizo. And, of course, Nkosi Sizo, in a way, comes out of the ANC. So, former President Jacob Zuma is its leader. He was the leader of the ANC for a long time. The ANC councillors in eThekwini, could some of them sympathise with former President Zuma? Let me put it to you like this. Do you trust all of the ANC councillors in eThekwini?
Well, look, there's no reason for me why I would not trust my colleagues. And I was part of the structures that produce the councillors that are currently in office. They went through the processes that was, involved in. So they've not demonstrated anything that shows that they are no longer have their hearts in the African National Congress. So of course, well, look, it's not them. Remember, it's not them. It's the people that matter to us. Some of the councillors, I must be honest with you, when we introduced them to the community, they didn't even know them. but they trusted the African National Congress. I'm not too sure if you are aware of that. So in some cases, it's the party that the people voted for, and that they would vote for anyone that the party puts forward, including you, SG. We can make you a candidate in one of the wards here. They'll still vote for you.
Well, I don't belong to your party, so I don't belong to any party.
No. You are right. I'm just making that as in jest, just to underline the point. So when you decide to stand against the ANC and you win, then I will congratulate you.
Thank you very much indeed. Cyril Xaba is the mayor of eThekwini for the ANC. The situation in KwaZulu-Natal, very, very interesting. 8 minutes now to 8 the time.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Delays around the busy Pretoria East this morning with lights out on Solomon Mshlangu's your route westbound towards Garsfontein. So that's all very slow. Looks like the earlier crash around the Rondebosch Road coming out of Benoni through Boksburg is probably being cleared. The traffic flow is a lot better through there. This M2, if you're going into Germiston, well, there's a couple of problems. Crash at Benrose, so leaving central Joburg's heavy. Then you're going to be asked to sit in traffic on the M2 from Heldenace going down towards Refinery Road. A reminder that you may well be diverted and delayed on the KZN South Coast, protesting again, blocking a section of road between Harding and Port Shepstone at Islingolweni. POP Police, Public Order Police have said that they'll be stepping in, closing the road at Paddock on the Port Shepstone side and around Harding on the Cockstad side. So it's quite extensive closure to deal with there. Cape Town, plenty of areas flooding. It's very interesting. Not everywhere in Cape Town is said to be experiencing the brunt of the storm, but the areas that have significantly backed up. A couple of those areas are Parow and Elsie's River, Norwood, Avonwood. There's some really serious and significant flooding and congested routes. Multiple routes. I haven't seen Parow, Elsie's that busy probably ever, I think, so stay away from that. Mitchell's Plain is also underwater, and fallen trees across many parts of Cape Town, including quite a big one on Hout Bay, Main, coming from Hout Bay. Fallen trees, you make your way to Constantia Neck, and then some flooding in the Neck area as well. So Hout Bay, Main is under a bit of pressure. Interestingly, where there's no incidents, the traffic around Cape Town seems to be flowing okay. One exception, Marine Drive. Traffic lights down at Milner Road. So coming through from Milnerton to Parton Islands, quite a heavy queue. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Time. When you're a kid, it moves slower than a sloth trying to get through airport security. There is just so much of it. Skip forward a few years to your 20s. Time is still your friend. It says have some balance. Go party and have fun. Then your 30s hit. And time suddenly steps on the accelerator like it's trying to catch a traffic light before it goes red. 40s. Now time is moving faster than your 10-year-old on a sugar high. 50. You're desperately trying to save as much as you can, but time is moving so fast. And all you can think is, where did all the time go? That's why after 50 years of investing, we've learned that time is the greatest gift of all. And the good news is, if you invest early, time gives you money. And then money gives you more time for some much-deserved you time. Now, isn't that a compelling enough reason to invest? Ellen Gray. Long-term investing. Ellen Gray is an authorized FSP.
The youth is the future of South Africa. We envision a society where young people can thrive without fear of violence and abuse. Gender-based violence, the murder of female students by their partners, revenge porn, and other forms of cyber violence has become a pervasive and devastating reality for young people. We cannot be silent. It's time to amplify youth voices towards a culture shift. The GBVF Response Fund calls for unity in building a future where young lives are not tainted by violence and fear. This is an SABC-supported initiative.
The inaugural Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking Conference will take place from the 10th to the 12th of July 2024 in Cape Town under the theme Africa Unlocked, Unlocking Africa's Growth. Tune into the Full Circle with Bridget Masinga and the National Pulse with Ashraf Gada to get insights from the conference.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
All right, so many different issues, of course, this morning. Talking about life, Esidimeni. You heard the mayor of the city of eThekwini just a moment ago. Mfundo on the line from Cape Town. Life, Esidimeni. Mfundo, hi, go for it.
Good morning, Stephen and SAFM listeners. Just a side note, Stephen, the situation in Cape Town, the floods are there. Wind is strong, but some areas are drivable. N1 is them to jam up from Century City down to Plattekloof. But life is a demand.
Okay, just take care. Just take care in the rain, hey, Mfundo. Please be careful. Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Stephen. Thanks. Just on the life estimate saga, I heard you when you were talking to the spokesperson of the Johannesburg.
Of Gauteng Provincial Government, I think it was, Wiomaga.
Yes. I would like us to take this note of cost saving from government officials out, because if you know that you are doing all the due diligence and you are putting South African people first, cost will never be. Yes, cost is a problem, but knowing that you have ticked all the boxes and you have finished, there's no hidden cost. This is the best exercise that is supposed to do. But now in this situation, they want to act as if they are saving costs, but somehow, money is going to be siphoned in a way, Stephen. Because you cannot compromise the life of people for the sake of saving money. If you know that you have ticked all the boxes, whenever you're being audited, you will say this was the best decision I have to take for the benefit of, and these are the results of the poor service delivery in our communities. Because they act as if they are saving money, knowing for sure that they're gonna benefit somehow.
Yeah. All right.
Because if they put our people first, we'll be getting better service delivery.
Yeah. No, Mfundo, I hear you. I mean, it's amazing how much money goes into government and what we kind of get for it, you know. So I think that's an important question. Nomsa, hi. Nomsa, you're on the line from Ekurhuleni.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Stephen Sotes. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm a professional nurse employed by the Gauteng Department of Health. In 2009, the evil Ketani Mashangu, while I was on duty, absconded me because I had discovered that she was involved in the killing of my mother and 7 other people in my family.
How did you know that, Nomsa?
Excuse me, Stephen?
How did you know that?
There was an investigation that was done after what my mother had told me. It involved a doctor that had left for Australia, where Ketani Mashangu took refuge when she was wanted in South Africa for the life of Esidimeni. And at that time in 2015, I was working for the Springs Clinic, where the management had falsified the report and written that I'm mentally incapable and I was going to be thrown at Esidimeni. The intention for Esidimeni by Ketani Mashangu and Gauteng Health and Department of Education was to murder people who they thought were troublesome to them. I was one of those people. I have been living an inhumane life since that time to date, Stephen. They have withheld my benefits, my salaries, and we haven't had even food on the table these past 5 years. But Ketani Mashangu yesterday, when she said that instead of being criminally charged and accepting that they are murderers, they've killed innocent people, she said she's going to consult her lawyers. She's got lawyers that are behind her. Okay. That is why I'm saying in the Gauteng Department of Health, even the current Premier of Education, they went into a rampage of taking advantage of vulnerable people and killing them so they can pocket the money. Okay. I concur with the caller that said earlier on, the whole process was around greed and wanting to get rid of people that were innocent, diligently doing their jobs, or people who were vulnerable, voiceless, who couldn't speak for themselves. Okay. And they know that once you are declared a mentally disabled or mentally ill person, you are a nothing to them. So they need to get rid of you. Right. There is more to what Ketani has done, and I feel to God and pray that one day all of them, because there's got an entourage following them. The Premier, the Gauteng Premier, Banyazali Sufi, and all these other people involved. It's painful what they did to my mother, murdering her.
Okay, Nomsa, I'm so sorry. I do have to leave it there, and it's a very big claim that you're making. Clearly, there's a big story here, and I don't have evidence one way or another to justify what you say. You're with SFM, leading the conversation just after 8 o'clock.
In our top stories, relief for families of Life Esidimeni tragedy and study finds night owls have better brain function. Good morning. Families of the victims of the Life Esidimeni tragedy say they are vindicated after the inquest judgment Tefu virtually delivered in the High Court in Pretoria yesterday. The inquest was opened after the deaths of 144 mentally ill people in 2016. Judge Tefu found that the negligence of the former Gauteng Health MEC, Qedani Mahlangu, and the former Gauteng Mental Health Head, Dr. Magabo Manamela, led to the deaths of some patients. Christine Ngumalo, who lost her sister Virginia Makapela in the tragedy, says she's relieved justice has finally been served.
I have no words. I am so emotional. It's been a long wait for this. Everything that we've been saying, the warnings, the attempts to stop, everything we tried to do was exactly what the judge said. Had they only listened and paused, we wouldn't be sitting here right now. These were human beings, vulnerable human beings. And if the system doesn't protect them, who else will?
The city of Cape Town says it has received numerous reports of flooding as well as obstructions on roads. Traffic spokesperson Maxine Bezuidenhout says AZ Berman between Westpoort and Imperial in Mitchell's Plain and parts of the M5 near Ottery Road are closed. She says Wynberg Road is also closed. A bridge is submerged due to flooding.
Reports of impacted roads will likely increase as the morning wears on. While we expect lower than usual traffic volumes on the roads, motorists are urged to not let their guard down and to be incredibly cautious.
The ANC Youth League says the conduct of Sports, Arts and Culture Minister Gayton McKenzie is unacceptable. It says the newly appointed minister should avoid making hasty decisions and attacking creatives. This follows the release of the list of creatives who received funding from the department during the COVID-19 pandemic. The league spokesperson is Zama Kanyase.
He's been barely there a month. What he should be doing is to get to his department, understand how it operates, understand how government operates, meet up with those he's leading. He has not met up with those that he's leading. He's not met up with the creatives. Instead, you have Makati being attacked by his department publicly as we speak because she dared to complain that she was not supported when she went to an international trip where she was now representing South Africa. If you are going to international awards as an artist, it moves beyond being just about you. We are now representing the country.
Former Northern Cape ANC chairperson John Block has denied claims that he has joined the Umkhonto weSizwe party. He released a statement yesterday pledging his allegiance to the ANC, following a social media post linking him to the MK party. Block was granted parole in November last year after serving 6 of his 15-year sentence for fraud and money laundering. He was jailed during the late former President Jacob Zuma's tenure. Block has another fraud-related matter before the Kimberley Magistrates Court. It relates to a 51 million rand tender. And finally, British researchers have found that people who are most active and alert in the evening perform better at cognitive tests than early risers. They, however, say that the most crucial component affecting brain function is getting enough sleep at night. The BBC's Kat Weiner has the details.
In a study of nearly 30,000 people, the researchers from Imperial College London found that staying up late at night could actually be good for our brains. They correlated data on sleep duration and types, categorised as morningness, eveningness or intermediate, with performance in a range of intelligence, reasoning and memory tests and reaction times. While those who slept between 7 and 9 hours a night performed best overall, the scientists also found that so-called night owls had what they classed as superior cognitive function compared to morning larks. They say their research also underlines the importance of adequate sleep for brain health.
Recapping the top story, families of the victims of the Life Esidimeni tragedy say they are vindicated after the inquest judgment Tefu virtually delivered in the High Court in Pretoria yesterday. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
A very good morning to you in your SFM Sports headlines. It's rugby. Damien Delander wants to shine in the Box next rugby clash against Ireland this Saturday, and the super fans are upset over the funding cut by Sports Minister Gayton McKenzie. All these stories and more just before 8:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Not a bad run through Joburg traffic, interestingly. Maybe just a guide that Thursday is perhaps a work from home day. One exception, the M2 coming out of town, coming out of CBD down towards Benrose on your way to Germiston. A crash there, still backlogging traffic. And then going into Germiston, and sitting traffic on the M2 from Heldenace all the way down to Refinery Road. You might want to just avoid that one. Cape Town, we're watching this storm move through the region. It has left a lot of damage, a lot of fallen trees, some really significant flooding issues in Paro Industria, Elsie's River, Norwood, Avonwood, basically between Jake's Curvell Drive and the Langa Epping side, right through to Delaray on the Paro Industrial side. It is all just significantly flooded and significantly jammed, not helping matters. Straight through the middle, 35th Avenue is closed through Bishop Lavis. But you've got any business to go in there today, maybe ring ahead and see if you can do it tomorrow. It really is a big problem. Fallen trees on the Hout Bay Main Road coming up to Constantia Neck, and then a fallen tree the other side of the neck on Rhodes Drive moving through towards the M3, so that's likely to be slow. And no traffic lights on Marine Drive at Milner Road, so quite a backlog coming through from the Milnerton side towards Pardon Island. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
SAFM Sunrise. A vivid start to your day.
8 after 8, good morning, you're with SAFM Sunrise. I'm Stephen Grootes. Well, more on the superfan issue in around 20 minutes from now. Very interested in it. I mean, the whole idea of being a superfan, what are you? Are you a performer? Are you a fan? Do you get paid to do it? And of course, the national government did pay, the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture did pay for people to go to France to support the Springboks. 1.3 million rand during the last Rugby World Cup. Now, the new minister, Gate McKenzie from the Patriotic Alliance, he says he won't allow that to happen again. We'll look at the whole issue of fans from 8:30. You might have a view. I've been interested, almost a little surprised, in fact, that some of the superfans are getting quite a lot of support. And I say that because it was surprising to me when it emerged government was paying them in the first place. I had no idea. Anyway, your view on that on 086 000 2032. Life is Esidimeni still a major issue. You heard from Mfundo earlier in Cape Town about the situation there and the rain. Just please be very, very careful. And if someone, from government knocks on your door and says, look, you need to evacuate. And there are one or two areas around sort of Drakensberg where I think that is happening because of the dams there. We'll look at HIV in a moment, and we'll talk about bioinformatics. I think I've got that correct in the next few moments as well. Good morning, 9 after 8.
Channel the forgiving spirit of Utata Madiba on Afternoon Express, Tuesday at 6 p.m. on S3, as community development practitioner Taryn Liebau shares how he rebuilt a nation with the power to forgive. We discuss the magic of making a child's dream come true and cook up Madiba's favorite oxtail with umngusho. That's Afternoon Express this Tuesday at 6 p.m. only on S3. Repeat Sundays at 8:30 a.m.
And we would buy 500 cars, and we would buy 500 more. So sell your car for the best price, and we won't think about it twice. We buy cars, we buy cars. We buy cars, we buy cars.
We Buy Cars, the easiest way to sell your car by far.
If you love premium documentaries, then we know you love Thursday nights on S3. Broadcaster Alice Levine asks if there's anything such as normal when it comes to sex and sexuality in the 2020s. She meets sexual adventurers up and down Britain, those pushing the boundaries of sex, intimacy and relationships. Tune into Sex Actually, Thursdays at 9 p.m. Channel your inner curiosity with BBC Primetime, only on S3. Open up. S3.
The inaugural Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking Conference will take place from the 10th to the 12th of July 2024 in Cape Town under the theme Africa Unlocked, Unlocking Africa's Growth. Tune into the Full Circle with Bridget Masinga and the National Pulse with Ashraf Gada to get insights from the conference.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
Good to hear from you this morning. 086 000 2032. Well, in Tshwane, the city of Tshwane's health department there, talking about the continued prevalence of mother-to-child transmission of HIV in that area. And you may remember 25 years ago, there were huge arguments about a drug, nevirapine, I think it was called, that prevented the mother-to-child transmission of HIV. It was a very famous case because in the end, the Constitutional Court ruled that government must make this drug available to HIV-positive mothers. To find out now that still children are being born with HIV, despite the fact this drug is widely available, is very disturbing. Sibongile Chabalala is the chair of the Treatment Action Campaign. Sibongile, good morning.
Good morning, Stephen, and how are you?
I'm well, thank you. In a way, your organization was formed exactly around issues like this, around HIV drugs. I was astonished to hear that this is still a big problem, that women living with HIV are still giving birth to babies with HIV, despite the fact that drugs to stop this are widely available.
Yeah, also us as an organization and also as HIV activists, we were very surprised to receive these reports, and it's really heartening to hear such back steps that we are taking as a country. Because remember, in few years ago, around 2010, 2011, we were talking about less than 1% of children born with HIV. So now, if we are going back to have a mother-to-child transmission, then it means as a country there's somewhere where we have missed the ball and we are not doing right. So it means then we need to go back and look at what we need to do right and what have we gone wrong.
As I understood it, what would happen, and Sibongile, you'll know more about this than I do, but a woman might fall pregnant and would probably then go to a clinic and for a checkup before she has her baby. And at the clinic, there's supposed to be an HIV test. And in fact, some of our data, our HIV prevalence data, comes from that. Is that what's supposed to happen if a pregnant woman goes to a clinic? There's almost automatically a test?
Yes, actually, the South African guidelines, especially antenatal guidelines, are saying that each and every woman who presents to the clinic pregnant, that woman, it's compulsory that that person needs to be tested for HIV. And if that person finds out to be HIV positive, immediately that person needs to be initiated to treatment. So that is why I'm saying, also as us as activists, we are astonished by what has happened and the reports, and we still want to check where did we go wrong. Is it people are presenting late in the facility? Is it people are not following the guidelines as they are supposed to? So where did we go wrong as a country? Because we had this and we were doing very well, and why now we are taking a step back?
Your organization, the TAC, has reported to us in the past about what happens when people go to clinics. And in some cases, I think there was a report, last year it might have been, about the treatment that they get. Is that still a problem, that maybe the clinics are not actually treating people properly? Could the problem be there?
It could be, because yes, people are still skeptical to go to clinics. People are going to clinics at the last stage because they are afraid of being mistreated in the facilities. The attitude that they encounter from the security at the gate to the clinic, especially pregnant women. You can imagine when we know that the best age now is mostly young people, and when they get to that clinic and they are shouted at by the nurses and all those things, discriminated, and we don't know actually why we are still having this high teenage pregnancy. So there are a lot of things that are happening which may cause people not to go to the clinic. So those are the things that we need to look back and say, what are the real challenges that are happening, especially at the antenatal clinic. But also as a country and activists, everyone, we need to take responsibility on this issue to say we've been focusing on other issues more than pregnant women, because we thought that we have achieved that one. And that's one thing that we need to learn, to say when we have a goal and we achieve that goal, we need to find a way of maintaining that goal. We could never just
Sibongile Chabalala, thanks very much indeed, Chair of the Treatment Action Campaign. Such an important story. I mean, something I thought we wouldn't see in our country again, the mother-to-child transmission of HIV. 16 minutes after 8.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
The issue of superfans, Les and Polokwane, how do you feel about it? The Sports Minister, Gayton McKenzie, has stopped their funding. I know people go in lots of different directions on this.
All right, I'll tell you what. I have nothing against superfans. I really just good to see them.
Les, just move around so that we can hear you, please. Battling to hear you there.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, it's a little better. Go on.
Okay. What I am against is there's no accounting the amount of money spent.
Oh, Les, I'm sorry. We're gonna have to call you back or something because really we can't hear you properly, and I don't want you to be misunderstood. Voice notes on this issue coming through as well this morning.
Morning, Stephen. I think Gayton was right to cancel that funding because you can't have athletes or people in the arts struggling for funding to do the form, but you're sponsoring fans. So I think priorities must be rationalized, and that is the correct decision as far as I'm concerned.
All right. Other voice notes on this?
Good morning, Stephen, and all SAFM listeners. The Minister for Sports, I think he's quite right. I will say all the money that they use to pay for all these overseas trips, they can use the money to invest in the youth, in sports in this country, fixing stadiums, buying them sports kit, doing a lot of that. That is an investment to our youth. Thank you. It's Lucy.
Lucy, thank you. Yeah, it's a very interesting debate. Alfred and Mangong, which way do you go?
Hi, Steve.
Hi, is it Alfred? Go for it.
No, Steve, my issue with the super thing is that I find it surprising that only soccer fans are sponsored for this kind of stuff. So I'm wondering, do they follow rugby? Do they follow the athletics? Are they always at the stadiums locally? Or is just concentrated on football fans?
Well, Mama Joy and Mzila Buerto were in France for the rugby. I think they made their names in football, though.
Yeah, but locally, do they follow rugby? And there people there following rugby that can be selected for such?
Yes. No, that's an interesting point, actually. Yeah, you raise a very interesting point. I suppose you could say football is the biggest sport in the country, but still.
Yeah.
All right. Alfred, thank you on the line from Mangong. Very interesting debate to have, actually. Mike on the line from Danilton. Mike, hi. Life is Esidimeni. Good morning.
Yeah, morning, Steve. How are you?
Yeah, I'm well. Go for it.
All right, man. I want to ask why the people who were at the institution that admitted those patients, why are they not prosecuted? There was no recommendation yesterday from the court.
This is the NGOs, yeah.
Yeah, those NGOs, those people died at their hands, at their institution, but they are not prosecuted. I don't know why.
Yeah, that's such a good point, Mike. Actually, I hadn't thought of that, and you're right, because I know in other findings and there was testimony and all the rest, but you're right. I mean, I don't understand why they wouldn't be. Okay.
Yeah, no, thanks.
Yeah,
Thanks,
Mike, thank you. There's a lot still to come, I think, from this. Becky Tamba on the line from Mpumalanga. Morning to you again, Becky Tamba. Super fans.
Good morning. How are you, sir?
I'm well. Go for it.
Very good. You know, when it comes to sport, fortunately, I'm one of the people who worked in sport and also, have been part whenever we were struggling with people getting to the stadiums and so on. The issue of superfans was established for the people of South Africa to be identified. Even if when come Bafana, when playing wherever, Mama Joy, Bottom Msila, if you still remember, I'll start with Mr. Msila. There was a Africa Cup of Nations that was played at Egypt. That man had to hike from South Africa to Egypt. And when he came back, then the government took an initiative that, what can we do for this man? He also received the Chairman's Award from Dr. Ivan Khoza for his passion in terms of being what you call a supporter. But having said that, I don't mean that maybe the minister has, quickly acted and so on, but I think if only maybe there must be transparency as to say that how do they come about to that decision to say that these are the two people that we have selected with the super fans. But remember, Mama Joy as well has got credentials because she was recognized by FIFA and she was invited by FIFA in certain games that played. So that tells a lot. It's not just that they are just super fans by virtue of being just looking unto them, but I believe that in their presence, they invested so much in the game, and you cannot separate them from any other game. It's like when you are wearing a gear of a particular magnitude, being a player and so on, that is maybe associated with whatever sport.
Yeah.
They are ambassadors of our sport. I think they must be respected, and I believe that if ever maybe the minister at the end of the day want to deal with the issue, he must deal with this issue attentively and also involve them as well. I thank you.
All right, Becky Temba, no, thank you. Look, I mean, it's an important point. I do think that people should be consulted. But, you know, if someone's received money from government in the past, I don't know if that means that you can continue to receive money, you know. The issue around transparency is interesting as well, because sometimes people just catch attention of cameras, you know. They become a person. How do you kind of say, well, this is the person we're going to select and have a process for that when everybody knows the person? Do you know what I mean? It's very interesting. It's your mediated conversation in a few minutes, 23 after 8.
The Science of Life on SAFM.
News this week of a grant worth 28 million rand from the US National Institute of Health's Fogarty International Center. That's going to the Stellenbosch University. They're looking at what's called bioinformatics. And essentially the idea is it will bolster bioinformatics training in our continent and will look at infectious diseases, particularly tuberculosis. Professor Samantha Sampson, Professor in Molecular Biology at the University of Stellenbosch. Professor Sampson, good morning and thanks for your time.
Good morning and thanks for having me.
You're going to have to stop me at the beginning here. Bioinformatics, it's information about my body, right?
Absolutely. So I must preface this by saying I myself am not a bioinformatician, but we need bioinformaticians to help us understand some of the very complex data that we generate from our research. So it's really a combination of biostatistics, computational biology, mixed with biology itself.
Okay, there's some things that are pretty simple. You can tell from a certain data, my height, my weight. You can tell whether I'm going to be a better football player or a better rugby player, let me put it like that, or whether I'd be a long-distance running or maybe a better swimmer. But you're talking about stuff that's much more complicated. You're talking about things going on in my blood. You're talking about things going on in other parts of me that need to be put together.
Yes, exactly. So we could, for example, look at specific markers in your blood that may predict the outcome of TB treatment. We could look at the severity of disease and things like that we can put all these very complex data sets together using bioinformatics to make those predictions.
We've seen some changes in the way in which we treat tuberculosis, and you talk specifically about, and the grant talks specifically about, TB biology research. What kind of sort of research are we looking at here? Are we looking at the best way to cure TB, and perhaps it may be done differently in different patients?
So that could certainly be part of it. The types of research that are covered by bioinformatics are really, really broad. So this could be anything from immunology of TB, so like I was talking about predicting biomarkers that will show how a person would respond to treatment, but it could also be predicting risk, so looking at someone's genetics and saying, is this person more at risk or not? It could also be supporting better vaccine research. So it's really, really broad. It's not restricted to a specific area of TB research.
Where are you going to focus with this money? I mean, where do you think it needs to actually be focused on? What kind of things do they need to look at?
So really the funding that we've received is to train bioinformaticians and specifically to train people who we think will be the future leaders in bioinformatics. So again, the research that they may do would be very broad, but ultimately in terms of translation, what we need is new and better drugs and new and better vaccines. So those would be the ultimate outcomes that we would hope for. But in the meantime, we need the people who can interpret the data to make those outcomes happen.
There's a big shortage of them at the moment?
Absolutely. So not just in Africa and South Africa, but there's a worldwide shortage of bioinformaticians. So those that we have that are in our department are like gold. We really don't want to lose them. And we need to grow more. We need to grow our local talent. And we also need to interact with international researchers. So the goal of this program is to essentially make more bioinformaticians who can be leaders in the field moving forward.
Thank you very much indeed. Really do appreciate the time. Professor Samantha Sampsons, Professor in Molecular Biology at the Stellenbosch University's Division of Molecular Biology and Human Genetics. You with SFM. Coming up now to 27 minutes after 6.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning. Damien Dialende.
Yes, the Springboks centre, who's been pivotal in the recent success of the Boks, wants to use his impressive skills and get the recognition. Now, he's had a couple of significant criticism since the Springboks' shocking loss to Japan. That was in 2015 at the Rugby World Cup, but he's now been described by the attack coach Tony Brown as incredible and calling him the best passer in the team. Dellinder, now flourishing in Japan, credits his midfield partner Jesse Creel for their success, noting Creel's impressive defensive decisions. The duo will soon break the record for the most caps as a Bok centre pairing, surpassing Jean de Villiers and Jacques Fourie. Dellinder remains focused on securing that win against the world number 2 ranked team this Saturday.
I've always wanted to pass a bit more, but I also know sometimes you do a role that suits the team, which is more important in my view. So, yeah, it's also just about getting that balance right, when to pass and when not to pass. So, yeah, it's something that I've been working on, not just when I was in South Africa, but also playing in Japan now. I get asked to move the ball around a bit more, which is also nice.
The Central Gauteng Athletics, they hosted a send-off event in Johannesburg for athletes Ryan Impahlele, Akani Simbine, Kyle Blichnout, Cheswell Johnson and Light Pillay. Each athlete received a cheque for 10,000 Rand as well as a new smartphone as a token of good luck for the upcoming Olympic Games. Impahlele is making his debut in the 1,500 metres and is particularly excited as he's the first athlete born and raised in Tembisa to qualify for the Olympic Games.
Yeah, for me, it looks as a thing as outside of myself, for where I come from, Tembisa, and the people that have been supporting me throughout my whole career, and for them, I think it means a lot more for them than for me, because they've seen where I've been, how I've been coming up, in the athletics scene, and for me to actually be able to reach such a world sporting event, which is very big, like the Olympics, it means a lot for them. So, yeah.
Cycling action. Denmark's Jonas Vingegaard has won stage 11 of the Tour de France following a sprint to the line with rival and overall leader Tadej Pogačar. The defending champion Vingegaard of Visma Lease Bike edged out Pogačar of UAE Team Emirates as the pair raced for the line. Pogačar remains in the yellow jersey and is now 1 minute 6 seconds ahead of Remco Evenepoel, who is third on the stage, with Vingegaard a further 8 seconds behind. And finally, South Africa's superfans led by Sadam Make are demanding a meeting with new Sports Minister Gayton McKenzie after he announced an end to taxpayer-funded overseas trips for superfans. Known for their vibrant support at major sporting events, they've become iconic figures. Now, the minister's decision, made via social media, has caused concern amongst these dedicated supporters. They argue that their presence promotes social cohesion and supports the national team. Superfan Make elaborates.
If they tell me, without sending a message, whatever, they tell me as we started, or maybe we agree, they can say, no, that was not a gentleman agreement, it was a right and black and white. We are no longer going to use you because ABC. So now, when this comes to me and say, we are no longer going to sponsor you, they will tell me why there is. We need them to support the national team. The national team, the players, they need us, we need them. This is our duty as a club to support them.
That's a wrap of Sunrise Sport. We'll bring you more here on SFM. I'm Zai Khan.
Zai, thanks very much indeed. Well, more on Superfans in a moment. You're with SFM leading the conversation, 8:30.
Good morning. In the headlines, lobby group Equal Education has described the nomination of ANC Member of Parliament Zizi Kodwa to serve on the Basic Education Portfolio Committee as an insult to learners. Families of the victims of the Life Esidimeni tragedy say they are vindicated after the inquest judgment, Judge Manao Defu virtually delivered in the High Court in Pretoria yesterday. And disaster management in the Western Cape says it's assessing reported wind-related damage to houses in the Wynberg area. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still very busy coming out of Joburg on your way to Germiston today. First obstruction is a crash at Benrose. That's been with us all morning. Delays back to Joe Slovo. Second problem is a little operation down at Refinery Road. And if you're going into Germiston on the M2, that's backlogging as far as the N3. Hell today's interchange. Durban side, the N2 still fairly busy up towards Westwood Mall. There's queues from around the Clare Road, the Booth Road Bridge through Spaghetti Junction and up towards the work zone. M7 into Pinetown's busy again this morning with queues to St John's Avenue. And Cape Town, quite a bit of flooding around. Not all parts of Cape Town were hit with flooding and heavy rain. Some completely missed it, but others that have been hit really badly. Parow, Elsie's River, Avonwood, Norwood, Parow Industrial, that sort of area there, really heavily backed up traffic. A lot of flooding in the area, a lot of road closures to deal with, and some motorists just trapped and going very slowly. So avoid travel into that sort of greater Parow area, if you like. It's the area between Robert Sobukwe in the south and Ford Trekker in the north, Delaray to the east of the N7, Jake Scovale, sort of Epping territory out to the west. Just to stay away from that area. Also, really significant flooding on the Van Riebeeck Road at Blackheath. I've just put a video of that up on x.com at Traffic SA. You can see how severe that is. And we've got some heavy pressure on Marine Drive this morning. A crash at the N1 highway means as you come through Parton Island towards town on a pretty easy day, you'll have some heavy traffic on that section of Marine Drive. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Mediated conversation on SAFM.
27 minutes now to 9. The time for your mediated conversation this morning. Well, earlier this week, the new Minister of Sport, Arts and Culture, the Patriotic Alliance's Gayton McKenzie, announced that he would no longer allow his department to fund 2 superfans to follow national teams around the world. He was referring in particular to Mama Joy and Mzila Botha. They're famous for following our football and rugby teams to wherever they're playing. Last year, during the Rugby World Cup, the Sports Ministry spent 1.3 million rand on their trips to France to support the Springboks. But how did this idea of a superfan originate? How important are they to players? How important are fans to players? And why do people spend so much money simply supporting their teams? First this morning, the history of superfans. Where do they come from? Nkululeko Nkewu is the co-founder of eThekwini. Then the importance of being a fan. Mpho Siopa is the chair of the National African Football Supporters Association. And finally, the importance of fans for players. Mark Smapinyani, of course, played for Bafana and Chiefs and Pirates. I don't know if he talks about Chiefs as much as he used to. We'll speak to him a little later in the show. First, then, we start with Nkululeko Nkewu, the co-founder of eThekwini. Nkululeko, good morning. Thanks for your time.
Good morning, Stephen Grootes. Good morning to your listeners as well.
Where did this idea of superfans come from? How did they sort of emerge into our sporting mainstream?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because when I grew up, by the time I was 4 or 5 years old, I was already into South African football. And what you would notice consuming the football, obsessed with it, watching it, is that the cameraman would always pan to the same faces every single match. At Orlando Pirates, it would show Orlando Pirates as super fans. At some point, it became Mama Joy. At some point, there was a man called Mgijimi. He's now passed away. When it's when it's Kaizer Chiefs, at some point, it would pan to Saddam Make. And that was like as early as 1995, 96, when I was 5 and 6 years old. And you notice them. And to a large degree, when you're listening to shows, because your obsession extend beyond just watching a football match, when you're listening to radio shows on SABC Radio, when they talk to coaches and players, eventually they're going to talk to the super fans. And to us, it became ingrained, in our minds that, okay, we are fans ourselves. We are obsessed with football, but there's people who take it to another level. When Orlando Pirates, when Mamelodi Sundowns is playing, they'll be there. I'm from Cape Town. As a child in Cape Town townships, I would watch my favorite team, Kaizer Chiefs, playing when they're visiting Cape Town. But people like Abo Botha, Mama Joy, Machaka, those people will take it further. They would watch their teams play across the country. And then as we grew and when we became interconnected through social media and smartphones, we then realized that some of them are actually hiking. We didn't know that. We were like, okay, these people have money. Why are they watching Chiefs at home and Chiefs away and Pirates at home and Pirates away? Because we couldn't do that when we were children. We would just watch our favorite teams whenever it visits your city, right? And you would do whatever you need to do. Take a train, illegally take a train because you don't have money, find a way to buy the ticket for like 10 Rand. But the super fans were people who were able to go above and beyond what we normal fans were able to do, which is to at least catch a game that is playing in our city maybe once a year. They would do it every single week, which is once every 3 days, home and away, home and away. And that was a remarkable thing. And I think to us, no one introduced the idea to us as fans and as journalists. As we grew up and become journalists, no one introduced that idea to us. We just saw that these people clearly have a greater commitment to sports than us, because every time there's a sporting event with their favorite teams, they're there.
Is there a formal relationship between them and the clubs? I mean, do the clubs sometimes help them along? I mean, if you're taking a team bus or two, you might as well take a super fan, I mean, is there a formal relationship kind of thing, or are they kind of at arm's length? I mean, over time, relationships will form just because you're always in the same space at the same time.
That's a great question, and that's a great point. Yes. So Masilo Machaka works for us at eThekwini TV. Whenever Chiefs games are playing, he works for us. We pay him. And I would ask him this question when we were watching these matches, and he would say that initially there was somewhat of a relationship, but not formal. It was an informal relationship, but they would give him tickets, for example, to say, Machaka, make sure that you come with other fans. This is a big game, although Chiefs sells itself anyways, because that's the greatest football brand in this country. But they would, somewhat acknowledge him, sometimes give him tickets. But then the club is so big and it has so many fans that maybe the club gets swamped in not knowing how to acknowledge who is a bigger fan. But there was some sort of an informal relationship where some of the super fans would get perks like that. And sometimes when the club travels away, and it would see, oh yeah, this is our guy. We come with him from Johannesburg, even though we came here alone with his branch, Tembisa branch, Soshanguve branch, and something like that. So there was some sort of informal, relationship between the super fans and their football clubs. But then over time, especially in this era, there was some sort of a neglect, and I think especially with Pirates and Chiefs that. For example, you would see then Mama Joy moving over to Royal AM, and that was a shocking thing for us because we grew up seeing Mama Joy being part of Orlando Pirates, and then Royal AM. What we understood was that Mam Kiza would take care of Mama Joy better than what Orlando Pirates would be able to do, because there was no formal relationship. She was using her own money to travel and supporting Orlando Pirates, although she was associated in our eyes with Orlando Pirates. So she then moves over. Machaka, for example, eventually, and he tells me this, that eventually starts focusing on going to cricket matches because Cricket South Africa and the Lions Cricket Club it has a formal relationship with them, is able to give him a call and say, bring a band, we'll feed these people, and whenever the Lions cricket is playing at the Wanderers Stadium, we'll make sure that you guys are well fed and we'll give you something. So there's a formal relationship there. And I think even with SA Rugby, when they need Machaka and a couple of fans, that's a formal relationship. So they move away from football because they had an informal relationship with the football clubs. But it is very, very important for these guys to be taken care of. They are part of the furniture in South African football and sports in general as well.
It's one thing, and I mean, I can't see an objection to Kaizer Chiefs or Royal AM or even, a provincial like the Lions Cricket League, the cricket club, paying for people or providing some kind of service. It gets a little different when it's government money, and that's always the sort of, as a journalist, that's kind of the line, government money. And that's really what's provoked this. If it wasn't the national government giving people money, this wouldn't be a big issue. And there might have been other ways to take care of it. Let me put it like that.
Yeah, I think, Stephen, I had no idea how much the monies were until you introduced this topic and you mentioned amounts in the millions. And I do think, because initially I was thinking, what am I going to say on radio this morning? Because this thing is about just 2 or 3 people. It's a non-issue. But I think as a grown-up, you have to apply your mind to situations and say, Does it really need millions? Now, this is not, you see, super fans are my people. I come from football. I will always stand up for them. I was a fan too when I was 5 years old until I grew up and became a journalist. I will always be on their side. But then your brain must start functioning because you have a bigger responsibility and say, does it really need a million? Can we be able to say, for accounting purposes, that that million was really used for X human being to go to 3 matches or 6 matches at the Rugby World Cup in France? There needs to be some sort of accountability. However, this conversation should not be about isolating superfans. Those people, for a good part of 20 years, sacrificed their lives going to matches and using their own monies, and they became recognized faces. They beat their peers, who maybe 1,000 other fans who were trying to do the same thing, and eventually the cream rose to the top. And there's a reason why we are easily able to identify bottom sealer. We can call them when we do our radio shows, and they need to be taken care of by provincial clubs, by football clubs, and perhaps if Cricket South Africa wants to use Machaka continuously and they are using him, they can continue using him. But I think there's a point where there needs to be accounting responsibility or accountability to say we can't be using a million. Why are we using a million to a single human being? And that applies not only to those fans, because I will never throw them in the deep end. It applies to everyone else who's being sent on a mission to say they are an ambassador to follow Bafana Bafana at a World Cup or the Proteas at a World Cup, and $1 million was spent on each head. Does that really make sense? I don't know whether or not it makes sense, but when you mention $1 million for one person, then it really becomes very dodgy.
Nkululeko Nkeo, thank you, co-founder of Esidimeni Media. Do appreciate it. 17 minutes to 9. Your mediated conversation on the issue of superfans continues. Mpho Siopa is the president, chair rather, of the National African Football Supporters Association. Mpho, good morning. Thanks for your time.
Morning, Stephen. How are you doing?
I'm well, thanks. How important are superfans? Is the minister making the wrong decision by removing its funding from these two people?
Look, from a ministry perspective, they've got different prerogatives. From a supporters' perspective, we've got to be careful and not to vilify the supporters, because supporters are an important part to the game. Supporters are there to support their team. One has got to look and say, what process and procedures have been followed to be able to do that? Did the superfans go to government and ask for funding, or did government ask them? That's what we've got to ask as from a South African perspective and responsible South Africans. Because like Nkululeko said, but I don't blame Nkululeko that he no longer supports Kaizer Chiefs. There's not much winnings happening there. So you've got to be able to say, these are guys that have been supporting football on their own. They've made their own means to get to soccer games, to get to cricket games, and that's why they're recognized. Then the question becomes, who approached them to be able to say, here's an offer for you to be able to go and watch Bafana Bafana play everywhere they go? That's the question that we've got to ask. And the minister is right in saying, let's look for accountability, but not at the expense of a Mama Joy, a bottom sealer. That's what we don't want it to be, because supporters are an important part of football and any other sports. And that Demafa can tell you how supporters have played a big role when the teams, are playing, in terms of the songs they sing, because they can be able to relate to them. I just don't want them to be the vilified one. Yes, they have benefited from that, but we've got to look at the whole process of how that process was followed.
I think for many people, and let me just say this, I'm someone who watches some sport, not as often as I would like to watch it, Mpho. And when I see fans, I see people having fun, right? So that is, in a way, makes the case for government money hard. Why should government pay for some people to have fun? But I would imagine being a fan has moments when it's quite tough. I mean, if people are hiking to Egypt, goodness me. If people, you represent people who do this, you do this yourself. There must be moments when being a fan is quite hard. And I'm not just talking about Kaizer Chiefs.
Look, when you do it for your local club, that's purely on you, because you are able to go from Pretoria, and like Nkululeko rightfully said, supporters make sacrifices, and with the economy the way that it is, it's not easy to get to game. If your beloved team is playing in Bloemfontein, you've now got to make means. How do you get to Bloemfontein? And these guys may not, because I mean, if you're doing an 8 to 5 and you have a job, your boss is not going to give you time to be at a game on Wednesday and give you a time to be. So on a weekly basis, you are not at work. So some of them you find that they're not working and they are hiking to get to soccer games. They are hiking to get to any game where they are required. So it is that whereby supporters are making sacrifices to be able to be there for their beloved teams and everything else. What government has got to look at is that globally, in terms of from a structure perspective, and that's why we push for supporters to have a structure, because then that structure can be the one that then goes and says, this is what we are doing, this is how we require funding. Is it through sponsorship to corporate? Is it because you find that these big sponsors of national teams do have those funds to be able to take you there. But from a government perspective, that's what you've got to be able to approach and say, the national team is playing. If there is a funding for that, what is the structure that it goes by? How is it done? And it can't only be benefiting the select people that it does. How did you arrive where you chose them? How did you arrive when you said this one is better than this one?
There's another issue here. When someone like Mama Joy moves from Orlando Pirates to Royal AM, it raises another question. Is she a superfan? In other words, she loves Pirates, or is she a performer because now she's moved? And isn't that an important question? I mean, I want to see their reaction when someone scores a goal, or a try, 6 or whatever, as natural. But authenticity matters. And if you're a performer, fine, but then I don't know if you get to call yourself a superfan.
Look, let's first start. What makes you super? Because there are people who attend as many games as you, but are not as popular as you.
Well, thanks a lot.
So, and not you, Stephen, but I'm just saying in terms of, because supporters go to games and some are not about, they're camera shy, they don't want to be seen, but they will attend games for their supporters. But what you've got is that who then says you're a super fan because you appeared a couple of times on screen? I know of people that every single game at different clubs, they will be at games, but they're not on camera. But also is that, I mean, I remember driving to a game. I mean, I'm a Sundowns supporter. And Sundowns had lost in Polokwane to Orlando Pirates. The people that we drove from Polokwane to Joburg, there was not a word that was said because we were that hurt. But when somebody does that for a fee, then are you really a supporter? Because you feel that pain. You know you're going to be trolled, be it on social media. There are other supporters that are going to come. There are other neighbors are going to be like, oh, you know, your neighbors are happy to see you and your team have lost. They do things that they haven't done. They even be willing to take out your bin just so they can see you. So that is what you want, because you want that authenticity of supporters. You want supporters who you know they feel the joys and they feel the pain. So on this case, when Mama Joy moves across, no pun intended, you then ask yourself, is it still for supporting or is it for commercial reasons? And if it is for commercial reasons, she's allowed to, because she's earning a living from it and we can't fault her for that.
Nkosi, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Chair of the National African Football Supporters Association. In a moment, the role of fans for players. Mark Smapanyani. It's 11 minutes to 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Just want to zoom in on Joburg's M2 route. It's been fairly heavily backed up this morning. An earlier crash at Benrose. They're still causing some delays. If you're leaving Joburg, you'll sit in heavy traffic from Joe Slovo out towards that Benrose exit. Then more delays going into Germiston on the M2 between Heldnase and Refinery Road. A crash near Michelle Avenue on the R59. If you're heading down to the Vaal, that is quite slow going as well. At this stage, Durban, top end of the M4 Southern Freeway. That sort of back end of peak time delay, just dealing with the closure of Brook Street. It's still a bit slow, but it is looking a lot better. And the other big story today, if you need to go between Port Shepstone and Kokstad on the N2, you'll probably find yourself diverted away from protesting at Isngulweni. I understand the road may be closed out at Harding and then on the paddock side of Port Shepstone. So I guess Port Edward in the R61 section might be the alternative. Otherwise, from Coxdale up to Ikopo and Umsinkulu way, and then back to Scotborough would be the other workaround there. And then Cape Town, heavy weather for parts of the metro this morning. Elsie's River, Parow Industrial, still very heavy backlogs there. 35th Avenue going south through Bishop Lavis is closed due to flooding. Also flooding, closing down Van Riebeeck Road in the Blackheath area this morning. And the N1 into town, still very slow from the N7, passing Canal Walk and Century City. That's because of flooding before the Kubo interchange, and a crash on Marine Drive at the N1 causing quite a heavy backlog through the Pardon Island area. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Channel the forgiving spirit of Utata Madiba on Afternoon Express, Tuesday at 6 p.m. on S3, as community development practitioner Taryn Liebau shares how he rebuilt a nation with the power to forgive. We discuss the magic of making a child's dream come true and cook up Madiba's favorite oxtail with umngusho. That's Afternoon Express this Tuesday at 6 p.m. only on S3. Repeat Sundays at 8:30 a.m.
Imagine if you could save time like you save money. A second here, a minute there. Type a little faster, walk a little faster. Or you could stop scrolling on the internet. Just think of all the hours you'll save. Now what if you could take all that time and invest it? Watch it grow. Until eventually, one day, you'd have so much time that you wouldn't know what to do with it all. But unfortunately, time doesn't work like that. It can't be stored or banked. And unlike money, you can't make it back. That's why after 50 years of investing, we've learned that time is the greatest gift of all. And the good news is, if you invest early, time gives you money. And then money gives you more time to do whatever you want to do, even if it is scrolling on the internet. Ellen Gray, long-term investing. Ellen Gray is an authorized FSP.
Can you flex your musical skills? Fuse together the traditional music beats and mix them with modern sounds. Listen up. If you are a Maskandi, Scatamiya, Afrofusion or Umbankanga artist, the brand new show Ushuni Womhlaba is looking for you. Auditions are coming to your city. Gauteng, 22 to 23 June, Kwamaimai. Eastern Cape, 29 to 30 June, Lusikisiki Health Resource Center. Mpumalanga, 6 to 7 July, Emalahleni Civic Theatre. KZN, 13 to 14 July, The Playhouse Company. Auditions start at 8 a.m. Ushuni Womhlaba, proudly brought to you by SABC1. Santi, for sure.
Mediated conversation on SAFM.
7 minutes to 9, continuing your mediated conversation around the role of superfans and fans. Mark Smapinyani is a former player for Bafana and Orlando Chiefs. Marksy, should I mention Kaizer Chiefs or should I just skip over that?
No, mention them all, including Dynamos and Vets University. Good morning.
Nice to talk to you again, Marksy. How important are fans for you on the field? I mean, the noise, the shouting, the vuvuzelas, the buzz around the pitch.
Very important, and one can recall that from the days when there was no social media, and when we went to play friendlies, including club games out in remote areas, including Newcastle. That's one I'll never forget. There was a fan, and this fan, after the game, and people don't know that, they would even invite us to their homes. And it's not like your big mansion, that is a small home, but the guy has spent a fortune to entertain the team, the players, the love he or she has for the players. And those were the small things that fans would show as a token of appreciation. And then came the evolving times where you now realize that they are always in your faces, at the stadium. And your previous speaker spoke of Saddam Maki. I mean, there's a man that painted the house in black and gold, and then the linen and cutlery, everything is in black and gold. And that's a die-hard. But then we realize that as players, these people, when they are there, it means they are ready. We are ready. We know we can identify with one or two faces. Unfortunately, as some of your previous speakers spoke, very brilliant people that spoke earlier, Stephen, I thought, what am I going to say now? Because they've said it all. Unfortunately, there are fans, as they were saying, that have been regulars that I know. But the poor guys are not known, and they are more, I won't say decent, but they are at a different level. Maybe Model C guys who always at the games travel to Durban, travel to Cape Town. I know one who's been everywhere with the wife, but don't want to be in people's faces. And those are the ones that you think of and say, but you could be a super fan too, but they don't want to be part of that.
When you play, I mean, one of the big things about a match is it home or away, right? And that's also because of the fans, because when you're at home, it's massive, you know, everyone's there supporting you. When you're away, it's a very different story. Everyone can be there against you. I mean, what's that like? That's kind of the point. Without the fans, there'll be no difference really between home and away.
Yeah, in fact, when you say that, I would also agree with Paul, the previous speaker, that with Chiefs and Pirates, there was no difference. And even now, you know, there's no difference. I've always watched the Pirates playing in Durban or Chiefs, and they're playing against Amazulu. Amazulu needing a point. It's just an example, by the way. It happened in the past, not recently. Amazulu needing a point to survive relegation. And the Durbanites would be those Pirate fans who are living in Durban. And I'm thinking, why don't they think of the economy of scales and know that for this team to remain here, it means Pirates and Chiefs will always be here and everybody else, and then we'll have jobs and all those things. But those fans, those clubs playing for them have never been a problem for me, even Cape Town. But when you say how important is fans, yes, I can relate to that. When I was with Dynamos, where there were no fans, in winter like now, it would even be colder. So you understand that the fans are important. But with all these other teams, those two teams, by the way, that I spoke of, there has never been a problem. So you say how important are fans? They are important. But to players, by the way, when all this plan is laid out, whether it's a cup game or a league game, fans are not on top of mind to say, hey, and the fans are here or the fans are not here. The price, the ultimate price is in the back of mind, and training that started or preceded everything.
I mean, I suppose if you really want to know, do fans matter, go on YouTube and watch the highlights of any match played during the pandemic when there were no fans. And it was just boring. I mean, I don't want to take anything away from the players, but it just wasn't the same, was it? And that really is the big example of how important fans are.
They are very important, Steve. It looked very dull. It looked different. Only teams like Liverpool can play without fans and win the league. But, you know, any other team would just make it look so... And the feeling is different. It's like a training. And you hear all the strategies and the screaming. It just sounds so bad. Are very important and have to be recognized for that.
Thank you very much indeed, Mark Smapanyani. Really appreciate the time. Former Bafana players. You heard a list of clubs that he's played for over the years. Mark's nice to talk to you again. My thanks also to Mpho Seopa, the chair of the National African Football Supporters Association. Amazing stories coming out of this conversation, by the way. And Nkululeko Nkeu is the co-founder of Idiski Media. And of course, he was just talking about the origins of superfans, where they came from, where they come from. It's been a really interesting conversation. And just important to hear some of the stories behind superfans and how things have actually changed over the years. Reminds people of just the roots of football in particular in South Africa and how important it's become, how big a business it is now. We will be back with you tomorrow for the Friday edition of SAFM Sunrise. From Mdup, Stanza, Melissa and Zelma, myself, look after yourself. You're with SAFM leading the conversation. Good morning. It's 9 o'clock.
In our top stories, calls for withdrawal of ANC MP as Education Committee member and relief for families of Life Esidimeni tragedy. Good morning. Lobby group Equal Education has described the nomination of ANC member